reason why you think what I have on the board will not be good for society. Or you could just choose one thing, and you could tell me why that will not be good for society. Come on up and let's start talking. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate any conversation that will happen. And I appreciate anybody who will come on up. Chaos, please go ahead and request on up if you would like to talk to me about it. Because I do not like talking to comments. Alright, Chaos, I went ahead and sent you an invite. Go ahead and come on up and we can talk about it. Because I typically don't talk to comments. Essentially, the way that we pay for all this is, taxation. We already have the money to do basically, well, I would say mostly or basically all of it. We already have the money to do it. We're just not doing it. We already have the money to fund universal health care and guaranteed housing. Ending the war on drugs wouldn't take any money. It would actually stop money from being spent. You know what I mean? And that money, the funds that's allocated to the war on drugs could be spent on everything else. What's anti-American about wanting to make sure that all of my fellow Americans have good health care and all of my fellow Americans wouldn't, fall into homelessness? I'm not sure how that's anti-American. I'm not sure how it's anti-American to end like a policy that's been shown to not only not work, but increase police violence against my fellow Americans. Why would that be anti-American? Every time people say these things are anti-American, I always wonder why. Because, what is anti-American about everyone having to access healthcare or everyone having access to rehabilitation instead of carceral punishment? How was that anti-American? I never understand that. What's going on, Kay? The war on drugs is a bad thing. Y'all always talk shit in the comments and never come up. Hey, Luke, what makes you think I don't have a job? I always wonder that. What makes you think I don't have a job? I'm literally doing this 8 o'clock at night, which means that I work a 9 to 5. How's it going, Luke?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, what makes you think I don't have a job?
I didn't say that you didn't have a job. My reply is to your general statement, where you're saying people should have universal health care, and I'm saying to the people who want free health care, they should get a job. So I'm saying that it shouldn't be free for anything because there's a limited amount of resources. It already is the case where if you go to the ER, you're going to be waiting for hours on end. And the reason for that is because we give free health care and we don't have enough doctors to provide the health care. So ultimately, in order to provide the best service to people, you have to pay. If you give things for free, you're going to have to split resources too thinly. So if you want free health care, no, you don't get free health care. Work for it.
Okay, do people in Japan have jobs?
People in Japan have jobs.
And they have universal health care. So obviously having universal health care and having a job are not opposed, right?
Okay, this is not a direct comparison. The Japanese economy and the Japanese healthcare system are very different than the American economy and the American healthcare system. It's easy to say, just transport this system to our system. No, our economy is so much bigger than theirs.
Right. Japan is number one, probably the 5th largest, I think the 7th now, but they're the 7th largest economy in the world, and they have a capitalist mixed economy.
And they have not grown at all in the last 40 years.
And America is a mixed economy and a capitalist country as well. They have grown in the last 40 years. So
look at them. Around 1990, they were the same size as us.
We have similar economies. We may not have similar cultures because they're much more collectivist, but we do have similar economies and we do have similar population sizes. So why won't it work?
We do not have similar population sizes.
They have 150 million people. We have 300 million. All right, y'all, keep liking the live and keep sharing. Keep liking the live and keep sharing. All right, so Andy, you said, how is reparations good for society? Reparations would be good for society because we will stop servicing poverty, which black people besides Native Americans, black people fall into a lot more for several reasons. If you'd like to go ahead and come on up and talk to me, go ahead and come on up. I'm just waiting for Luke to come back. Cal Doob, that would not be communism. Communism is a system of classlessness and moneyless society. I don't know how we get to that point, so none of these would be communism at all. Hold on, someone else is requesting. All right, human being, I'm going to go ahead and bring you up. All right, why rice?
Yeah.
Is that your name?
White rice, white tea, however you like.
Oh, okay, white rice. All right, Rice, how's it going? Are you over 18, and do you disagree with something I have on the board?
Over 18, but not so much a disagreement. I just want to clarify something. You said 150 in where? Japan or America? 150 million.
Japan, if I'm not mistaken. Was I mistaken?
No, I don't know. But I'm saying, if you're saying that we have 300 million, that is not the same, my friend.
I didn't say it was the same. I said we have
That's
similar
double.
populations.
Similar? It's not similar at all.
Yeah, it is.
That's double. I don't know what you mean by similar.
No, it's double. That's
yeah,
not similar.
I know it's double, but we each have over 100 million people, so we can take comparisons per capita, correct? We can take comparisons per capita, correct?
Hold on, that might be my...
All right, when you move away from the app, I can't hear you. And please, no one interrupt. We go one at a time here.
No, my signal's all messed up.
All right, Rice. Yeah, so we can make comparisons per capita because we have over 100 million people in both our populations, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what I still want to know is what makes Japan different from America? What makes their economy different that they can have universal health care and we can't? Are we lazier?
They don't have universal health
the
care.
fact that we have
Hold on,
insurance.
human, be quiet for a second. All right, so what makes
No, let them go, let them go.
No, I
They
go one at a
force you
time.
to buy insurance.
I go
Other
one
guests,
at a
sounds like you're
time.
about to
I
talk.
go one at a time. Follow my rules, please.
No, I'm done.
I go one at a time.
I'm done.
Okay, cool. I appreciate you being up here, White
I'm
Rice.
done. Go ahead.
Cool, I appreciate you being up here. All right, so human being, what's up?
Yeah, so you're lying when you say that Japan has free universal health care when this is not the case. They force you to buy insurance. There's two insurances, which would be for your employees or the national health insurance. So they force you to buy insurance. There's no such thing as free health care in Japan.
Okay, does Japan have universal health care? Yes, Japan has universal health care system. It provides comprehensive medical coverage to all residents, including citizens, permanent residents, and short-term visitors.
They cannot deny you based on hospital visits and needed surgeries, but they force you to have insurance. That's the law.
So like here?
What do you mean, here?
Okay, so the healthcare system in Japan provides different types of services, including screening examinations, prenatal care, et cetera, et cetera. Payment for personal medical services is offered by a universal healthcare system. So they do have universal health care.
There's no such thing as free. You have to buy into it.
Where they pay through their taxes?
No, it would be taxes and it would be the insurance that you have to buy.
So they through their taxes and their so they have a mandated insurance.
Yes, so you have to get insurance, and on top of that, you would be paying taxes.
There's a public system.
Yeah, so you cannot be denied once you go to the hospital. That's pretty standard.
So there's a public system if you don't get private insurance.
Yeah, but the thing that you're talking about is free universal health care. It's like the free is the one thing I'm not believing in.
All right, no one says free though. We all know universal health care is paid through taxes. We all know that.
Yeah, and then on top of that, they would have to purchase their own insurance.
Right,
and
so
then the government would cover the rest.
So they purchase an insurance, and the government covers the rest. So they have a universal system.
I mean, I guess that could be applied.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, though.
Yes, so that could be.
But that's not the case in America. In America, we don't have a universal system. If you don't have insurance, you're just fucked.
Well, I mean, I think through like the Affordable Care Act, you would have to buy the cheapest insurance. It's kind of like Japan, I guess. It's moving.
They dropped the mandate. They dropped the mandate years ago.
No, they dropped the penalty. So Trump in I think it was 2017. You had to pay a penalty if you did not get the government.
Yo, what's up?
insurance.
How you doing?
Yeah, which makes the mandate basically all but nothing.
So, like, you believe that this would be a better society if you were forced to buy government insurance. On top of that, you have to pay taxes.
No, I think this would be a better system if we had universal health care.
Yeah, so what would be the difference between the penalties of buying the cheapest government insurance, which would be Obamacare, and on top of that, you would be paying taxes to cover the rest of,
You don't have to buy into it. It will just be universal. We're already paying into it. We're already paying into a system that has universal care, which is Medicare. The difference between Medicare and universal system. Hold on, Jock. The only difference between Medicare and a universal system is that Medicare only covers 80%. You got to pay the rest. Under universal system, it'll just cover all of it.
But why should we cover everything? Well, why should the government be responsible for extraordinary care? So, like, let's say if you smoke a pack a day, well, not you, your neighbor smokes a pack a day. Why should this be, covered by the government? This makes no sense. This does not incentivize healthy habits in no capacity because they know that they could just walk in and not have to deal with the consequences.
That is a
the
wild
economic
take.
consequences and physical consequences.
Does that happen now? Does that happen now?
Yes.
People smoke a pack a day. I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So people smoke
happens with life.
hold on, Jock. So people smoke a pack a day now. People already have unhealthy habits now. What makes it worse is that they're not actually going to go to fix those habits because they can't afford it, even if they want to.
Yeah, so like most people, when they tell me that they don't smoke, it's like, oh, I don't want to get cancer. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to deal with all these consequences. But when you tell people, yeah, there is virtually no expense to whatever unhealthy habits you have. You don't have to diet because you could just go and get, whatever Ozempic or whatever. That does not help you achieve healthier habits because there's no consequences of it.
Right. What's going to help you achieve healthier habits is actually education and changing our entire food and drug system, not just
But there's consequences. There's economic consequences.
Of course, there are consequences. There's always going to be economic consequences.
No, but you're offering to remove the consequences.
No, I'm not. Because what's the difference between America and somewhere like France that does have universal health care?
The fact that French people are poorer.
Hold on, Juan. Everybody listen. One at a time, okay? This is how I do it, one at a time.
Okay.
There are countries that have universal systems that do not have our obesity rates. So what's the difference between them and ours? Not you, Juan, not you. I'm asking human.
Sorry.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know about, like, the population in France. I don't really know how France works because, like, I'm just not a French person. But I guess that they don't have as much fast food or they don't have as much people to make that assumption.
There's a McDonald's in the Louvre.
Okay, that's fine.
What I'm saying is like,
McDonald's in the most popular place in France is not going to mean that, McDonald's is overly popular compared to America.
Yeah, it's not overly popular compared to America because we have a huge fast food economy and stuff like that. I understand that we have. I understand. Hold on. Let me finish. I understand that Americans, we have unhealthier eating habits, right? We also have unhealthier food because there's a bunch of sugar in it, right? So I understand those cases, right? What I'm saying is that a universal system actually does incentivize people getting healthier because then they would actually go see their doctors because they can afford it. Like typically, if I was able to see my dentist 4 times a year, I would. I only cut that down to 2 because I can't afford it. You see what I'm saying? So, like, if we actually had a system where people can actually have access to healthcare and access to health services, then we will see more people go. This is personal for me as well because I'm studying to be a clinical mental health therapist, right? The prime reason why people from my community don't go see therapists besides the religious part is because they simply can't afford it. But if we had open access to those type of services, you'll see a lot more people getting therapy, a lot more people seeing dietitians, a lot more people seeing cardiologists because it's going to be open and access to them. So why not open that access to them?
Yeah, I just don't think that the government is responsible to making, conveniences for, like let's say anxiety. That's not the priority of the government. That should never be the priority of the government to just give you a free therapist for, every single person on earth.
Why not?
Because the government is here for other purposes, like to protect you and to provide public amenities that is enjoyed by all people, not extraordinary care. So, let's say if you were born with the extraordinary condition of schizophrenia, you're not going to be benefiting from those amenities if you're just a typical healthy person. So with, universal healthcare or at least subsidized healthcare to virtually where there's no economic consequence, a person who smokes a pack a day and lives a dangerous lifestyle is benefiting more from the system than somebody who just wants to be a regular person. They're paying for extraordinary people doing more dangerous actions and jeopardizing their health. Why should I pay for that?
You already are.
No, I shouldn't be paying for that tenfold.
Right. Are you paying? Do you have an insurance carrier right now?
No, my parents, like, it's through my parents. I don't worry about it.
Wait, your parents pay your insurance?
Yeah,
So why should your parents be responsible for you?
because they chose to have me. I don't know.
You understand how silly this makes your argument?
Like, I'm not older
You're
than
not
26.
you're not paying for your own health care, right? So
No,
like
but
so
somebody who loves me is.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's actively making
this,
the choice to pay for it.
Yeah, this could apply to the same government. Since the government, since we're under the system and we're under our government's protection, the government should provide for us, right? Provide for us some things that will make our lives better. Wouldn't healthcare do that?
Yeah, so my life would be better if I had a week-long vacation in Greece, but the government should not be doing that.
All right, but a week-long vacation in Greece is not the same thing as a healthy society. Wouldn't a healthy society be better for everybody?
Sure, that is exactly why people should go to work.
So
and pay for
exactly. So
themselves to some degree.
a healthy society is a healthy population is good for society, and universal health care objectively makes healthy societies. So why shouldn't the government do that?
Yeah, because you're. Yeah, go ahead.
That's not
John.
true.
No.
That's a false
I
claim.
said one at a
universal-
time.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not
I
true.
think Juan can take.
No, I'm talking to you. You have 5 more minutes left.
Okay.
Juan, you could be next. All right.
Sorry.
So if we
it's
can
that
have.
time thing. Okay, sorry.
All right. So if we can have a more healthy society, why shouldn't we go that route? The only thing you have to be saying is that people just get up and work. That's all good and well. No one is saying don't work. The way that, do you understand how insurance works, right?
Sure.
The way that insurance works is that when you're paying that premium, it doesn't go into your little piggy bank at the insurance company, and when you make a claim, that money's for you. You're putting that money into a pool. So when you say that you don't want to pay for other people, you're already doing that, or your parents are doing that by paying an insurance premium. All that money goes into a premium pool. So everybody who's part of that insurance company, they're paying into that same pool, and then when one person has a claim, it gets taken out that pool. So when you say that you want to pay for other people, your parents are already doing that. That's how all insurance works. The only difference between what I'm saying and what you're saying is that you think this should be handled by private arbiters who are gonna want to make a profit, and I'm saying this should be handled without a profit motive. Otherwise, we'll see a situation like Luigi.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so I think that there are individuals in this country that would be better off and not really affected by the cost of, typical medical procedures. Like if there's somebody who's like even a millionaire, I don't think that it would be a negative for them to be able to pay for their medical bills. So I believe that private institutions should have that motivation, that incentive to stay alive and profit off of those people who have no issue, maintaining their own health or being economically responsible for any accidents that happen to them or whatsoever.
Do you really think health is something that like you just try to do? Like, you realize that it's not just on your own, right? Like cancer could just pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah, so like 40% of people in this country, I believe it's 40% are obese. And I believe that majority of those people, that's an active choice. They're raising their hand to grab a burger to be obese, right? So if near 50% of these people in this country are obese and they're making the active choices to worsen their lives, that should not be coming out of my pocket tenfold. Like it's already coming out of my pocket. I understand that.
What I'm saying is that the way that insurance works is that this is how all insurance works. So I'm pretty sure the insurance company your parents are part of have obese people in there. They're already paying for it. That's how it all works. So when you said that you don't want it to come out your pocket, that's how insurance already works. So what are we talking about?
No,
The only difference between myself and yourself is I'm saying that there shouldn't be a profit motive because it leads to bad results, like what we saw with the universal healthcare situation, United Healthcare, like what we saw with United Healthcare. Like it led to bad situations where because they wanted to make more of a profit, people were denied care who should have gotten it.
Yeah, I
That
don't
should
believe
not
that,
exist.
like, these,
All right, so exactly, that should not exist. So
denied
there should not be a profit motive, and the only institution that does not have a profit motive is the government. Now, I'm not saying that private healthcare can't absolutely exist. You can have private healthcare for things like luxuries, like plastic surgery or breast implants and stuff like that. Yeah, sure, have private healthcare for that. But everything else, for your eye care, for your heart care, everything like that, it should just be universal. Like, for example, my parents have hypertension, right? They didn't choose to have hypertension; just have it. So their health care is gonna cost more. Plus, my mom was a 30-year nurse. They're saying that her hypertension plus being a 30-year nurse is she's choosing to live a bad life. So she just be lazy and not work. You know what I'm saying? It's silly here. Like some of these issues just pop up.
Yeah, so I believe that the solution to, like, not the United Healthcare situation where they're denying claims, the solution is to put more regulations on private institutions, not to remove the competition by the government, wholly taking accountability
But
for
the competition hasn't done anything. The only thing that we've seen is that healthcare has gotten worse, and private actors have gotten worse at doing it.
Yeah, so the solution, I believe that the solution should be, is to, put more regulations on private institutions rather than, making it so that the government is responsible universally, straight out the bat for every single individual.
They're not responsible for you personally. It's just that when you go to the hospital, you don't have a bill. That's it. They're not responsible for you. Like if you go out bike riding and break your ankle, the government didn't do that to you. You're just not going to get a large bill for your knee surgery.
Yeah, but I believe that I should be able to pay for that, injured leg because I assumed the risk of going outside on a bicycle. Nobody told me to go on the bicycle. Now somebody else has to pay the federal government, or at least even more.
You're paying it. You understand how insurance works, right?
I understand that, but I'm saying more so. More so.
No one is paying more so.
No, if there were to be a universal healthcare system that just completely eliminates medical debt and all these.
Yeah, let's eliminate medical debt. Why we should not? Why should we? The number one reason people go bankrupt in this country is because of medical debt.
Yeah, I know.
That shouldn't be a thing. Let's get rid of that. Why do you believe in medical debt? Why do you believe in bankrupting your fellow Americans? That's kind of
so
silly.
when we see that mostly a near half of this country is making unhealthy decisions like being obese, that increases risk of complications. So we see that
you realize that obesity is much more complicated than motherfuckers grabbing a burger, right?
Well, I would say that for the loud majority of people that I've met who are obese, they're grabbing burgers.
I understand that's the majority of people that you've met. My 3 little cousins were born obese. They just fat. That's just them. They were just born that way.
It was just magic. They just magically just had all this.
Yeah, they were born fat. They were born 12 pounds. They were born 12 pounds, and one is 12 years old right now, and he's 5'9" and 230 pounds. They're just born fat.
Okay, maybe they should work out, or there's some sort of hormone disruption that's causing this. But regardless, I do believe that it could be avoided. Obesity is one of those things that can be avoided, but people are willingly putting themselves into circumstances, especially when they're adults. It's not the child.
Yeah, I understand that for a lot of people that's how it is, right? I gotta let you down right now. Yeah, for a lot of people that's how it is. I understand that we can do healthier eating habits, which was Michelle Obama's entire plan, by the way. But I understand that we can have healthier eating habits. We could have healthier food choices, right? Like one of the issues that cause obesity is, again, sugar is in everything, right? Yes. No matter what you buy, sugar is going to be in it. So we need to regulate the sugar industry in order to decrease our obesity. We need to regulate a lot of preservatives that go into the foods, right? All that has to do with government regulation, which is why other countries are not as obese as us, because they don't have the same type of materials in their food that we have in our food. Yeah. But the second thing that I would say on top of that is that I don't see a reason why would universal health care be some sort of bad thing if we're all already doing this? The way insurance works is that we're all already paying for somebody else. That's the way it just works. The only difference is I want to take it with a profit motive, but you want the profit motive that actually causes serious harm, and I don't understand that.
Yeah, so when somebody gets United Healthcare, this is not something that is the government, right? So the taxes that, or at least the tax consequences of universal healthcare, where the government would assume the risk, or assume the debt of all these people who are in hospitals, right? That would lead to increased taxes. How would this work without increasing taxes?
Open up Medicare for all.
No, I'm saying like, how would this work without like affecting taxes at all? Do you
Open
think
up Medicare for all.
But it has to be paid for.
Hold on,
Somebody
Buck.
has to
Hold
pay
on,
for it.
Buck. Hold on, Buck. I just said everybody one at a time. Yeah, open up Medicare for all.
Okay, so
If we were to say that, Medicare is no longer for people 65 and up, anybody who works can access their Medicare. What did you just pay for? What did you spend on? You didn't
wait,
spend on
so
anything.
should Jeff Bezos right now
Yes.
be given free treatment?
Yes.
100% free treatment?
Yes,
Like, why should he have
Yes.
zero economic responsibility?
because we all benefit from a universal system. We all benefit from it. So do you. I want you to have health care. I want the entire town to have health care. I want Jeff Bezos, and I don't fuck with him, to have health care. Even Elon Musk, if he's an American citizen, should get universal health care. Everyone.
So you're not advocating for need-based systems. Like, you're not even looking at needs. So
No,
you're
everyone should
advocating
get
for
it.
extraordinary care. So the people who are
This is not extraordinary care. Most people are not going to be going into the hospital with like a leg implant or something like that.
Wait,
They're going to
hold
go in for their regular checkups.
This is what I mean by extraordinary care. I'm not talking about like jumping off of like a skyscraper. I'm talking about the extraordinary care is somebody, like 40% of America's obese. It's an obese person sitting down, doing nothing, smoking a pack a day.
That's not most people. That's not 40% of people in America. Like that's not 40% of people in America. You understand that how obesity, like for example, if you were to see my mom right now, right, you wouldn't call her obese, but technically she's considered obese because of her height and weight. You know what I'm saying? But you wouldn't call her obese. I'm technically obese from my height and weight. You see what I'm saying? But it's like, if you look at me right now, you wouldn't call me obese. So like obesity is like, when you say 40% of America is obese, we have to actually see what we're talking about here. Because those 40%, they're not the people that you see on 600-pound Life. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
They're usually like regular people. You might be considered obese, and you
No,
don't know.
I'm
You
not
see what I'm saying? So I'm just using that as an example. But like what I'm saying is that most people that are considered obese are not the people you're gonna see on 600-pound Life smoking packs and eating burgers. That's not 40% of Americans. That's not
No,
them.
but my issue is like, when it comes to fairness, it is just not fair. Imagine this. There's somebody, you never see him just, get off his porch. He's always sitting down, smoking a pack a day. He's an alcoholic. He's making the active decision to ruin his physical health. And then his next door neighbor is riding a bike every day. He's eating vegetables. Now, the government is going to put more taxes on that person for him.
No, they're
the
not.
next door neighbor to receive care for actions that he put
No,
on
they're
himself.
not.
They raise their hand to smoke a cigarette. I don't want to pay for
human,
people who
listen to what I'm saying to you. Universal health care means that we're all paying into it. They're not going to raise taxes on you because an obese person in Podunk, Iowa wants to smoke a pack a day and he has no taxes. That's silly. Universal health care means we're all paying into it, not just a few people. This is dumb.
So most people, they're paying for this. They're paying for their health care through private entities. But now, if you want universal health care, all this debt to be assumed by the government, how would the government somehow say, okay, yeah, it's just, not going to have any responsibility on it?
Open up Medicare for all, because every working person pays into Medicare.
How much would that cost?
So drop Medicare from 65 to 18 and whenever you're working.
How much
Boom,
would that
you could
cost?
access your health care.
How much would that cost, and how much debt would that bring us into?
What, open up Medicare for all?
Yeah, how much would that cost?
Last I checked, I think, what was it, $3 billion a year? Last time I checked?
$3 billion a year.
I believe so. Last time I checked, I could be mistaken though. So don't take my
Yeah.
word for it. All right, we're actually already over time, human. So I got to go ahead and and drop you. But I do appreciate you being up here.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, go ahead and keep liking the live, keep sharing it. Welcome Dr. Joe to my live. Dr. Joe is one of my mods, one of my people that I admire because she's becoming a doctor in psychology, and maybe one day I could become a doctor in psychology. Who knows? But we got Juan up next. Give me 1 second, Juan. I know you want to talk, but I'm gonna get you in a moment. Loose Cannon, are you over 18, and do you disagree with something I have on the board? All right. Viondi, are you there?
Yeah.
All right. Are you over 18 and do you disagree with anything I have on the board?
I am over 18 and I do not disagree with anything that you have on board.
All right, appreciate you. Hey, Loose Cannon, are you back? All right, if Loose Cannon doesn't reply in a few minutes, then that person's going to get dropped. All right, there you are. Are you over 18, and do you disagree with something I have on the board?
Yeah, I totally disagree with just about all of it.
Okay, cool. All right, Juan, go ahead. It's your time to shine. You got 15 minutes. Why do you disagree with anything I have on the board, and which one?
All right, then we can start with first universal healthcare. I can expand on what Human was saying. They did a really good job explaining it, but they fell at a few points. I would say number one, it breaks the laws of physics. Funny enough, in my opinion, people forget to consider other disciplines when it comes to politics and economics, and physics is really important. And specifically, the first law of thermodynamics. You cannot create stuff out of nowhere. If you make universal healthcare, where are the doctors coming from? Where are the meds coming from? Where are the hospitals coming from? If you have a lot more patients out of nowhere, because now out of nowhere, more people can apply to this service, how do you get the resources to supply that new demand? You can't create it out of nowhere. If you just tax people, you have more money, but you don't have more resources. So you have the price of those scarce resources going up. You just can't create stuff out of nowhere. So it's impossible. The budget for Medicare is about almost $1 trillion for Medicaid and $500 billion for Medicare. And if we make it available for everyone, it should be over $4 trillion each, which means that normal Americans will have their taxes tripled out of nowhere. And if you don't increase their taxes and you just tax the rich don't have enough money. Actually, they're not nearly as rich as they need to be for us to be able to pay for these services by just taxing the rich. So you will have to tax the middle class and the lower class. And
all right, so Juan, first of all, when it comes to thermodynamics, you realize that we're not a closed system, right?
That we're not a closed. Yes, we are a closed system. Earth
no,
is
we're not. You're talking about no one immigrates to America?
You mean that? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not a closed system. So when you say where the doctors and the nurses are going to come from, we can recruit from around the world, number one. And number two, I understand that we have a shortage of doctors and nurses because, like, the healthcare system right now is very, very stressful. But I do understand the concern of there may be a shock in the beginning because there's going to be a lot of people going in the beginning, right? But the thing is, when this happens, right, the initial shock is going to calm down. Because once people are seeing all of their doctors and there's a lot more patients and things are getting paid for, you can hire a lot more nurses. You can educate a lot more doctors, which is why I think we should have free college, right? So we can educate these people. We can recruit, and not only that, the initial shock is not going to last long because after that first visit, and they get everything that they need to get done. You know, seeing their cardiologists, seeing their foot doctors, et cetera, seeing their dentists, et cetera. They don't have to see those people again for another year and a half, 2-3 years. So the shock in the beginning might be there, but it's going to taper off sooner or later. It's not like, we're always going to have 100,000 patients into one hospital every single day for the rest of our lives, forever and ever, amen. It's not going to happen. But the second thing that I would say is when it comes to taxes, the rich right now are not being taxed the way that they should be. I think we should be taxing capital gains because if you could borrow against it, that means you have it. So we should that should be taxed. And we could probably raise some taxes on the wealthy, right? But instead of raising taxes, in my opinion, what we need to do is we need to cut out loopholes, raise the cap on Social Security, maybe raise some taxes, and maybe tax capital gains, right? And this will pay for all this. Thirdly, I will say, again, we can just literally open up Medicare for all. If you drop the age of Medicare from 65 to 18 and you have to be employed, what exactly did you spend on? There's no money being spent there. It's just a policy that drops the age. That's it.
I mean, no, actually, you have to consider the fact that if you open Medicaid for all, you're going to have a lot more demand for the service. Therefore, it is impossible, the current tax rate, to keep subsidizing the service. If out of nowhere you have many more patients, it is impossible with the current funding to keep the service going. So taxes must go up, or debt must go up. And when it comes to the rich, let's say Elon Musk, the richest American, right? $350 billion is he worth, more or less? Let's say $350 billion. If we divide that by 340 million Americans, that means that we have a budget of about $1,000, and that's it. Basically, you have to shut down Tesla, you have to shut down eggs, and basically all the industries that he has. You have to liquidate them. You lose all the jobs, you lose all the services that he produces, and you only have $1,000 of budget per American to offer healthcare. It's not
What are you
enough.
talking about?
That the rich don't have enough money, even if you tax them at 100%.
You realize that no one is saying like just tax the rich and they'll pay for everything, right? Universal health care means that everyone, every working person is playing into that pool, not just the rich.
Okay.
So what are we
Can
talking
I
about?
add to this?
Hold on, Bilford. So it's not just the rich paying into the risk pool of insurance.
fair enough.
All of us are.
Fair
So
enough.
this is kind of silly.
Point taken. I was strawmanning you then by accident. I'm sorry. But even if everyone pays into it, why should I pay more in taxes? Especially Americans that I'm not American. Obviously, you can tell by my accent, but I live in Kansas. But why should Americans pay more for something that they're not consuming or they won't consume? Why I have a better plan? Don't take their money in the first place.
Okay, and then
afford the service.
hold on. So no taxes at all?
Not necessarily no taxes at all. I think some taxes are necessary. I'm not an anarcho-capitalist, but you should keep them as low as possible.
Keep them as low as possible. And every time we've done that, like we've had less services and people suffered because of it. Like every time.
Well, that's a very simplistic observation. It is partially truth, but it is not because of that. Like you can clearly see, for example, since the 70s, there was a clear disparity between the rich and the poor because we went off the gold standard, and inflation got very, very, very out of control. And inflation is the biggest tax. It punishes the poor the most, and it makes the rich richer because it appreciates their assets.
Right. And so we have sort of the same thing not going on right now, right? The disparity between the rich and the poor, and we just keep cutting their taxes. So obviously, cutting their taxes is not the solution here.
No, it's not the solution. You're right, but it's something that helps. The real solution is to fix inflation, which is the worst punishment for the poor.
All right. Well, inflation is gonna happen anyway, right? But when it comes to like cutting taxes, like we do this all the time. What is it actually? The rich are still like enormously rich, and wages are still stagnating. So what does cutting taxes actually do?
Okay, number one, cutting taxes creates more jobs. Okay, it doesn't necessarily increase wages. All right, yeah, cutting taxes creates. I can tell you as a businessman. Okay, I have a business. Mm-hmm. If I could pay less in taxes, I would expand my operations and I would hire more people. Right, because I'm greedy. I want more money, and if I had more workers, I could offer more of my service, and I would.
So why doesn't that happen? Because like we've cut taxes for the wealthy before, and they didn't expand jobs, and when they did, they were either temporary or shitty, or they cut out other benefits.
Or they outsource.
Number one, they do expand, and even if they don't expand their operations and they hoard the money, and eventually they spend it on whatever they want. Let's say they spend it on a mansion. If they spend it on the mansion, someone has to build the mansion, and that creates jobs. It doesn't matter what they do with their money, if they use it on their own business or not, that money gets spent in the private economy. And
right, the money is going to get spent, but like they're just going to buy a mansion. It's not like I'm planning to buy a mansion, let's hire 1,000 people to build it. That's not really how that works,
more
right?
or less, yes. To build a mansion, it requires a bunch of workers.
Right. But they're just gonna buy one that's already built. They're not gonna say, hey, I'm gonna hire this construction company to build me a new mansion. Like they barely do that.
Well, you will be surprised, but even if they buy a mansion that is already built, a mansion requires thousands of dollars per year in maintenance, which requires a bunch of workers around the clock to maintain it. It creates jobs.
Oh, okay, yeah. So serfs then.
It serves them. I mean, they both benefit from trying.
Okay, so we should just go back to serfdom.
We already in it.
So that
we're in techno serfdom technically, but yeah. So let's go ahead and cut all the taxes for the rich. The rich pay no taxes, and they could just buy up the entire economy, and we all just work as serfs. No, this is actually where we're going to. It creates jobs.
Sounds like he wants a Pottersville.
It creates jobs. So
sorry, the other guest is interrupting.
I got you. Go ahead, Juan.
Yes, they don't have enough money to buy the entire economy. To buy the entire economy, you need probably hundreds of trillions of dollars. Like they don't.
I mean, they bought the election, so
an election is far easier to buy because it's just an election.
And you think going back to feudalism is not going to be easy? We're already in feudalism technically already.
I mean, we're making big claims here. If you cut taxes on someone, they're just going to have more money. That's it. They're not going to have superpowers.
Right.
Know?
I mean, they're going to have more money, but what they usually do with that money is hoard it and keep it into their stock options in order to raise their net rate, their net worth. I'm sorry, to raise their net worth and then borrow against it and live off that. They don't really do anything.
That's not bad for the economy. There's no reasons to believe that that's bad for the economy. What's bad for the economy is that the Federal Reserve creates more dollars out of nowhere, destroying the purchasing power of Americans that get paid in dollars. Inflation is the worst tax on the poor. That makes them poorer.
Right, I understand that that inflation is a problem, right? We need to do something about inflation. That's all good and well, but that doesn't mean that cutting taxes for the wealthy and serving them is going to help our economy or anybody.
It's not about the rich. Now we're talking about the rich, but I'm talking about everyone. Everyone should pay less taxes because I mean, we agree that a 100% tax is basically slavery. You're working for someone else 100%. All right?
I mean, there's never going to be a 100% tax. Good. Taxes are marginal.
Just to put some basis on something, okay? Just to have an agreement.
No, of course. Like, I don't think anyone's ever going to agree with that, right? But what I'm saying is that taxes go into the services of our country, like schools, like roads, our electric grid, the internet, etc. What we're doing now, it gets subsidized by taxes. You see what I'm saying? So it's like if we pay less of that, then there's less government service that's going to go into these things, and then people are going to fall through the cracks. Like, do we not have no social safety net at all?
No. Okay. Here's the thing. I agree with you, but I disagree with your approach. Imagine having this approach that you're having with a private company. Okay, imagine you're going to buy a PlayStation and the company Sony that produces PlayStation is telling you, well, I need a lot of money, to make a good PlayStation console. So I'm going to sell it to you for $3,000 instead of $500 like it is right now. You're going to laugh at their face and be like, no, that's too expensive. And that's the key word, expensive. Mm-hmm. You as the consumer, you want more for less. Mm-hmm. Same here, but we don't have that reasoning for the government. I want better bridges, I want better roads, I want better government services for less. But for some reason, we don't have those standards with the public sector. We do have those standards for the private sector. We always want more for less, but we never want more for less from the public sector. And what do the politicians say? Oh, they just need more money. Imagine if we had that logic with any private company. Let's just give them more money. No, people will just stop buying. They will go to the competition.
We do that anyway.
Approach.
We do that all the time.
Can I ask Juan a question?
Hold on, Lips.
I also would like to speak.
Oh yeah, I got you guys. So yeah, when it comes to the private sector, we do that all the time. The government always bails them out and gives them more money. And not only that, the reason why we do that for the private sector is because people actually research to see how much it costs and how much they're going to give us. Like a lot of times when if a private company wants to make like a PlayStation 5 or like a Sony, right, making PlayStation 5, I bet when we look up how much it actually costs to make one, it's going to be way less than $500. They're just selling at $500 for them to make the profit. You see what I'm saying? So we know that private companies have profit incentives, and they're going to charge more than what they made the product for. You see what I'm saying? Now, when it comes to the government, like, yeah, we expect more for less, which is exactly what you're doing. You're saying that we should cut our taxes, but still keep up everything that the government is going to do, and that just doesn't work.
No, not everything. We should also cut what the government is offering and make sure the government only offers what we really need and it offers at a high quality.
Yeah, sure. Infrastructure and universal health care.
I disagree with that, but the profit motive sounds bad, but in the evidence is clear. It brings prices down. Like the first smartphone created in the 80s, it cost $15,000, and they made it for a profit. Today, they're still making smartphones for a profit, except now it's a supercomputer in your pocket that you can buy for $200. And that was during the entire process.
Can I explain to you how that doesn't work, like in regards to housing?
It does work with housing.
So like in large cities, builders are basically only building condos, high-rise condos, and like luxury, quote-unquote, luxury apartments for single tech workers.
Yeah, I know why.
And they're driving families out of those neighborhoods. They're gentrifying the neighborhoods.
You know why that is?
Because the profit motive. Because they know they're not going to profit as much on like single-family housing. They're going to profit more.
Why is that? I know why that is.
Because the units are larger, and additionally, the people, the like single tech workers,
No,
like
what you're
that
saying
have
is
more
unfair.
money, have more money to spend and more disposable income. to
Juan, are you
support
saying? I'm sorry, Liz. Give me 1 second. Juan, are you saying there's a reason why they would rather profit off of that one tech worker than the family?
Yes.
Because there's no profit incentive with the family, but there is profit there is profit with the single tech worker, right?
Here's the thing. I can tell you exactly why. Okay, there's profit incentives with both, because if you could only profit from the rich, I shouldn't be. I'm not rich. Okay, I'm not poor, but I live in a small apartment in Kansas. I'm not rich. Then why does my apartment exist? Definitely because someone greedy built it for people like me. Okay, but why is that not happening in New York? Their answer is very simple: rent control. Okay, if I am a builder and I go to New York and I want to invest $20 million to build a tower full of affordable housing, I will not be able to charge a rent that I think is competitive because the local politicians will not let me charge. But what if I get together with other investors, we put, I don't know, $100 million, and instead of building affordable housing, we build luxury housing. Now there's no rent control. We can charge as much as we want.
Right, but
that's the simple reason why they build.
I mean, I agree with you. That's why we should decommodify housing. That's great.
Give me pause me. Everybody pause me a second. Bilford has been patient, and he's been wanting to say something. So Bilford, go ahead and say what you got to say, and then I actually gotta move on to the next guest. So go ahead, Bilford.
I wanted to know, Juan, you said you weren't American. Where exactly are you from, if you don't mind me asking?
Sounds Central or Eastern European.
Okay. I was more or less wanting to know how things are done in his country. I wanted to see how it compared to things in the U.S. and then ask comparative questions.
Hello? Sorry, can you repeat what you said? My connection went off.
I was wondering where you're from.
He's Argentine.
You said you're outside of America.
Sure, I'm from Argentina, but I lived in the U.S. in Kansas for the past 6 years, and I will be becoming an American next year.
Oh, so you're from Argentina? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I was just curious why you were so invested in the American system if you were outside of America, but that makes more sense.
Oh no, yeah, I am very invested in the American system. I'm married with an American.
So do you know how our economy was functioning prior to the 1980s, like prior to Reaganomics?
Yes, I studied it in depth. I teach economics, in fact.
So you know that at that time we had an effective 90% corporate tax rate, and we saw a golden age in the economic boom in America, where like you'd hear stories about, somebody would work a part-time job at a gas station over the summer, then buy their first car, or like they're getting married and starting kids with families, like multiple home families, and like by their early mid-20s. That's a fantasy now.
Yeah.
And partially due to, there's a couple of reasons why that's happened. And one of them is that we've lowered that effective tax rate from 90% down to about, I believe it's down to about 28%. And we keep raising taxes on the lower middle class. So we are actually bearing more of the burden while having less wealth. And also wages have outpaced inflation. So like prior to Reaganomics, wages would at least match or outpace inflation, meaning that you could work a minimum wage job and still support yourself and possibly a family. That you can't even support yourself on a minimum wage job anymore. So part of your argument is very flawed, and it's been historically documented for several decades now. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Well, what you're saying is a fair point, and you are right about the observation, but the data is not truthful. All right? It's not Reaganomics, sorry, my mispronunciation, what brought the United States down, okay, or what it is bringing it down, because it's still pretty up.
There was a few other things, but that was a big part of it.
You said the effective tax rate was 95%. True, but it's not truthful. No one paid that amount of taxes because there were a bunch of deductions. Literally, not a single millionaire paid that amount of taxes. Data number.
Right.
The tax
So
revenue.
that was an
back then-
effective tax rate on billionaires, and even at a 90% rate. Hold on, real quick, because you're sort of jumping on half of my point. So,
No,
like,
I'm
okay,
responding point by point. I don't
think
want
about it
to.
like,
That's why I want to reply fast. So point number two,
okay, go ahead.
the revenue back then was lower. Literally, the government is getting more money today than what they were getting back. They were getting back then. Okay, so the idea that the rich were
The economy was smaller.
the idea that the government, the idea that the rich were paying a lot more money to the government, and somehow the middle class and the poor were saving more money thanks to that, that's just wrong. The real reason why the middle class is getting poorer is because Richard Nixon destroyed the convertibility between the dollar and gold. And now, since then, the inflation rate outpaced the economic growth rate, meaning that people are getting poorer in several metrics. And it's just because of inflation. If we're on an island with five coconuts, $1 per coconut.
The issue is that, number one, inflation will always going to happen. But the second thing that I would say is that we have to get off the gold standard anyway, because like fiat currency is just easier to work with. We can't go back to the gold standard. You know what I'm saying? So fiat currency is something that we have to do from now on, and he had to get off of that in order to be more flexible to give loans and stuff like that.
I agree with you. We don't need the gold standard. We could have a law that says that we should not print more dollars unless, I don't know, if I destroy a dollar by accident, okay, create a dollar to replace it. The monetary supply should be stable, but they didn't create such a law. Imagine we're on an island with 5 coconuts and $5, $1 per coconut. We agree on the price. If I show up with a suitcase with $1 trillion, we have.
Yeah, right. I got you. Like those.
Question for you, Juan.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Juan. So, what do we do when we audit the Pentagon and there's hundreds of billions of dollars missing? Because that happens every time we audit the Pentagon. Do we just replace that money?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, there's a bunch of proposals. It depends on how you want to come out of the debt. You want to come out of the debt slowly and with a lot of prolonged pain, or do you want to come out of it fast, make it quick, make it painful, but make it quick?
Or do you want to devalue the dollar by covering up fraud?
Exactly. That's one proposal. I don't necessarily agree with it, but there's a bunch of ways to get out of it.
That's what you'd be doing effectively, because all of that government waste and abuse, that's fraud. So anyway, I want to get back to my point that I was trying to make.
Yeah,
another factor. Sorry, go ahead, host.
No problem. Before you do that, I wanted to talk about the entire thing with New York City and rent controls. One of the main reasons they do rent controls is so you don't have the situation that we have here in Florida. Here in Florida, like I can buy a house today, raise the rent from $2,000 to $5,000, and give the person 3 days to leave or to leave my property. You see what I'm saying? Like stuff like that causes an unstable and untrustworthy society, which is what's happening in Florida right now, which is why one of the reasons why our homeless population is getting so high, because of stuff like that, which is exactly the reason why rent controls are a thing. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't see the issue with rent controls.
I absolutely see your point, and you're absolutely right to point out that problem. I just disagree with the solution, all right? In my opinion, the solution to that problem would be to modify zoning laws. That's one solution, because right now it will be illegal to build right beside your house a multi-family unit.
100%. No, I agree with you. 100% agree with you there, Juan.
The other thing that I will fix is number one, inflation. If people are getting poorer, they're not going to be able to afford a better apartment. All right. And number three, okay. Well, those first things would already fix the issue to start with. But number three, if you make if you fix zoning laws and you fix the monetary system, it will be easier to get a better credit score and to get better loans for people to afford housing. Where I'm from in Buenos Aires, we had a bunch of rent control and a bunch of housing.
Right. I got you. So, like, the thing is, I agree with you when it comes to the zoning laws. But one of the reasons why those zoning laws don't work in America. Every time we try to add, better built units, et cetera, one of the reasons why that doesn't happen is because people within the community, they're more worried about their profit than housing people. So that's what actually showed me that the profit motive can actually work against a better society, because like these people who when we try to change zoning laws, they're against it because of their property evaluation is going to go down. You see what I'm saying?
Also, consider this: the prison system, the prison industrial complex that we have in this country, is a for-profit system, meaning they have to keep a certain amount of bodies in the beds to receive federal funding, meaning that we need to have about 70% of our capacities full. We have more incarcerated civilians in this country than any other country in the world. We still have legalized slavery in this country via the prison systems. There are red states that exist today in 2025 that still profit off of slave labor. Like they depend on it. So like, do you think a model that requires incarceration of its own citizens for profit, do you think that's going to be a beneficial move for society?
I see your point, and I agree with you, and also I agree with the host. The profit motive can be negative, but at the same time, it can be positive. In my opinion, it's not black and white. A lot of people with profit motives do bad things, and a lot of people with profit motives do great things. So it's about the law, and the government should analyze those specific instances in which the profit motive is damaging and get involved.
But what's different?
I would agree with that. But
you said that as of next year you'll be a full citizen of this country. Have you had to pay taxes yet?
Yes, I've been paying taxes for 2 years.
How much of your annual income are you paying in taxes?
Well, I'm a business owner, so it's pretty high. It depends on how many deductions I do, so it's about 20 to 25%.
Okay, I was going to say the average American pays about 25% of their income in taxes. Now, are you familiar with like the Nordic model for universal health care and socialism, like Norway?
Yes, really familiar.
Sorry?
Yes, really familiar.
Okay, so do you know what their average tax rate is in that country? Yes, of course. Do you know what it is?
I think it was like 30.
It's 50%. So roughly half of their income goes right back into the government. Now, about a quarter of our income goes to the government. For that 25%, we have the largest military in the world. We have the largest prison industrial complex in the world. We have 500,000 homeless veterans. We haven't solved homelessness, or we have half of this country living paycheck to paycheck. More than 33% of the children in this country suffer from hunger issues. Like, for being the richest nation in the history of the world, we have a lot of social problems. Now, we're already taxed at 25%, okay? Imagine if we went with the Nordic model, we're taxed 50%. Suddenly we've got universal health care. We've got universal K through 12 education and college level, like state universities, trade schools. All of that is paid for with tax dollars. Let's also say you get, if you are laid off from your job, you'll still get UBI. If you need universal daycare is now provided. Universal maternity leave, universal sick care. So like everybody in this country has 2 to 3 months off a year that they can have for sick days or maternity leave, right? The average is about 6 months around the world for maternity leave. We don't even have a week for maternity leave in this country. So yeah, let's double our taxes from 25 to 50%, but you get all of that as a public service.
Well, that would not work like that, and I can see why you think it will be like that, because it's very easy to think, oh, if the Nordic countries got it, why not us? Well, the reason is very simple. First of all, the GDP per capita, and the income per capita in the Nordic countries is far higher than in the United States. In the United States, you have a lot of more poor people. So in the Nordic countries, they're richer, okay, and they can afford that. That's point number one. Point number two is that in the Nordic countries, they don't have universal healthcare and universal education the way they want it in the United States. What they have there is a voucher system. which means that the government does not subsidize these services directly. What happens is that they subsidize the consumption of this service. So, for example, you want to go to college, and you decide to go to any college. The college you go to, then they get a paycheck from the government on your behalf. So that's a voucher system, all right? If you decide not to go to the college, you don't have to pay for it, which means that the spending goes down. What they're asking for in the United States is universal healthcare and universal education, which means that they don't pay per student. It's not like they give you a voucher and if you go to college, then they pay the college on your behalf. No, it doesn't work like that. What they would do is to just give a certain amount of money per year, regardless of how many students they have, which means that it doesn't matter what you do as a citizen, you still have to pay with taxes through it. In the Nordic countries, if you don't go to college, if a bunch of people decide not to go to college, the spending goes down. Okay, so the spending adjusts to the productivity.
I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, that's two things. I don't see a problem with that either. But the first thing that you said is that these northern countries, their income per capita is a bit higher. So, and America has a lot more poor people.
Yeah,
so doesn't that mean that we should be working on alleviation of poverty, which is going to come from those type of social programs?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We're the wealthiest country in the nation or in the world. All of our wealth is just
in the history
concentrated
of the world.
Between 34,000 households.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, alleviation of poverty would increase the alleviation of poverty, which is why I have this there, reparations and living wage, would actually raise the per capita income, right? And therefore, we are able to afford all this. But the third thing I want to say is that you said you're from Argentina. Argentina has a universal and private system. Yeah, so how come we can't have that here?
It's awful. Because it's awful. I had family members who have passed under that system.
Yeah, and I have family members who have passed under this system. This system is shit.
Yeah, I would definitely have had
I'm not defending the American
I've definitely had more hardship under a capitalist system. I mean,
our system is shit, bro. Like, it's terrible.
I mean, the American healthcare system, I recommend you the book, The Primal Prescription, which is made in collaboration with economists and people in the healthcare community. That book explains what's wrong with the American system. It's not capitalism or the lack
of capitalism. So we need more companies that are basically benefiting off of people being sick.
For example, let me give you an example. Insulin.
Okay. No, bro. We passed 20 minutes already, bro. I gotta go ahead and drop you. We gotta move on. But I do appreciate you being up here, though. All right. We could talk at a later time, but I do appreciate you. All right, y'all. W1, I appreciate Juan being up here. Bilford and Libs, you guys do seem that you might be friendlies on my side, but yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. We already went past 30 minutes with what happened to Holly? Holly, come back up.
Is there a time limit?
Yeah, I usually have 15 minutes per person. But we're about to hit the 30-minute mark with Juan, which is why I said we just gotta go ahead and move on. But I do appreciate him being up here.
Can I just say one thing, and I'll drop, and you can maybe get some off up here?
Sure. What's up, Lips?
Yeah, I just want to, 45,000 people are unalived every year from lack of health care in the United States. So I think we can make some improvements.
Absolutely.
100%. Absolutely. All right. Appreciate you guys. All right. Early Hurley, how's it going?
Hey, how are we doing here?
I'm all right. Are you over 18 and you said you disagree with something I had on the board, correct?
Yeah, I'm 30. God, I feel older than that, though.
Yeah, I'm above 30, so. Yeah, sure.
This year, don't feel bad.
Yeah, man. All right, so, Hurley, let's go ahead and talk for about 15 minutes. What did you disagree with and why?
Pretty much, I'm going to focus mostly on the healthcare, the housing, and the college.
Okay, why would universal healthcare be bad for society?
Well, it's not bad, it just is unfair.
What's unfair about it?
So, in the case of someone like me, I'm in reasonable, well, I used to be in reasonable health. I bust my butt, I earned my living, I've earned everything I've done, and I never wanted to go to college. To be honest, I'm not even sure how I got high school. But in order for all these things to be universal or free, someone has to pay for it, i.e. the government, i.e. the taxpayers. So my taxes would go through the roof to pay for things that I don't use, that I don't want.
So, two things early. First, did you hear what Warren was saying when he was up here about having it be to the individual and their needs? Like, if there's less people going to college, the expenses would go down, and we both said we don't necessarily have a problem with that. How do you feel about a system where you would be excluded from that if you decide not to participate?
So you would say free. You would say that I could allocate where my taxes go.
No, I'm saying like you could choose to opt out, say I don't want to seek out universal health care education, and as a result you get a tax break.
Yeah, I'd be able to opt out of whatever particular.
Yeah, so you'd support it for the rest of the country if you had the choice not to participate?
I wouldn't say support, but I would definitely step to the side if someone wanted to go for it. By all means.
So you're in favor of a public option?
Yeah.
As
long as the option of being able to opt out whenever you wish for everybody.
No. A public option means you opt into it, not out of it.
Yeah, you opt into the public option.
Yeah.
So
essentially, you have Medicaid in your state, right?
Yes.
Yeah, open it up to everybody. That's the public option.
That's the idea. And if you don't want to participate, you don't have to, but make it available for everyone.
And would that mean if I don't opt in, I don't have to pay in?
Right.
Well, with that particular condition, it does not sound like a bad idea, to be honest.
There you go.
Thank you.
How about this, Hurley? I'm pretty sure that you're employed and you work a job. Do you pay Medicare?
No, not anymore. I've opted out of everything that I possibly can. If I do, I don't know about it.
Oh,
does your employer offer you health care?
Yes, and I have denied it.
Okay,
cool. So let me ask you a question.
Actually, hold on, give me a second. You actually can't opt out of Medicare. So when you pay your taxes, you're paying into Medicare, right?
Well, I have to double check my check stub. This is a newer job for me. I've only been here for a few months, but
you still have to pay into that.
You have to pay into Medicare. You can't. Yeah, you can't opt out of Medicare. You have to pay into it, right? But you can't access Medicare until you're 65, right, Hurley?
I believe so.
What if we did a system where you could access your Medicare right now because you're working?
I'm not sure I would personally do it, but I'd have to look into it as a principle for others.
Right,
Are you
exactly.
uninsured?
Hold on. No, let me just ask a few more questions. So, Hurley, my idea of universal health care would be to just open up Medicare for everybody. That's basically universal health care. The moment you start working, you can access your Medicare. You think that would be a bad system? Or an unfair system?
Well, as long as someone can choose not to participate, then yes, I would say that sounds pretty fair.
Right there you go. That's what universal healthcare would be. Like, and the thing is, honestly, I don't see how you would say it's unfair, because the way that insurance works right now, that's basically how it works. You're paying for everybody else. Like your premium doesn't go into like a little account for you. You're putting it into a pool, and then claims get paid out that pool. So the only difference between private insurance and universal insurance is that the administrator is going to be the government, who doesn't have a profit motive. So they can't deny you, your insulin or cancer treatments because it's going to cost too much. There's a difference.
Early, are you insured?
Medically, no.
Yeah.
Well, technically, yes. I excuse me. I claim disability through the VA.
Okay, so that's a social service that you're receiving.
Yes and no. Yes, it is, but I did have to go through quite a bit to earn it.
Give me a second, guys.
Mean it's not a social service.
I'm sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. Rowdy, you're gonna ask your question next before I get to MJD. All right. So just give me a second, Rowdy. My bad, guys. Go ahead.
So the reason I asked if you were insured is because you said your job offers it, and you said you didn't accept it. You have some form of insurance through the VA, so you didn't necessarily need it. You still have to pay for that, correct?
Pay for the VA?
Your insurance.
Normally, most yes. In my particular case, no.
Okay, but in most instances, it would be correct to assume that.
Yes, you still have to pay. I don't know all that. I honestly don't have the capability to understand it.
So your employer has no other option than to offer you health care. So whether you take it or not, they still have to pay for it. And you receive insurance that is based in the government that can be taken away at any time. You don't have any private health care coverage. So as a result, because your potential healthcare industry is tied to your employer pays you a lower wage, and you still have to pay out of pocket for your co-pays and your deductibles. Maybe not in your case, but in most.
I don't want to be rude, but I have an intruder at my house. I have to go.
Hey, not a problem. Appreciate you, Hurley. All right, guys, keep liking the live and keep sharing it. I do appreciate everybody being up here. Bilford, I do definitely appreciate you as well. Just give me a few minutes with everybody before jumping in, all right?
Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. MJ, oh, that was loud. All right, MJD, I do see you there, but Howdy had a quick question. I'm going to get right back to you, all right, MJD?
Hey, I appreciate it. You got a good live here, man. Hey, on number 3, how could you help me as a white man to get workplace democracy? What would you suggest?
Unionize. Unionize with you and all your buddies at work. Because that's what workplace democracy really is. It's just unions. Now, does every single profession should have a union? I'm not too keen on police having unions because I'm not too keen on police in the first place. But I do believe that every workplace should have a union and the workers should have a say on what happens in their workplace. Depending, you know what I'm saying? Of course, give me a second. Of course, there are corner stores where, my nephew was working at the corner store and I own a corner store, right? He's not going to have a union. It's just, he's going to do what I say. But if it's a business of like 5,000 employees, yeah, you should have a union. That makes sense, Rowdy?
Yeah, so you're saying that the people in the union will change the way they think about me and my skin color if we say we are in a union, right?
Yeah, because
skin color.
Equal,
I'm not sure why skin color is.
Why is that such a focal point?
Because it's workplace democracy. White people do not get first preferential treatment.
What do you mean? Yeah, you do.
Well,
according to research.
I worked at Capital One, and it said on the application, preferential treatment to anyone of African descent or Indian. Any liberal place is going to.
All right. So yeah, I'm not gonna listen to conspiracy theories all night. Yeah, that's mad illegal. that's hella illegal. All right, I appreciate you. Apologetic for being up. Let me just talk to MJD real quick. MJD, how's it going?
21 for your live, and also I'm here to talk about number 4. I did want to, by the way, real quick, you can make an argument that your company is doing something illegal, but if they state it on their paperwork, that's actually a violation of the federal law. So I don't know how that can be true.
Yeah, exactly. It's not true at all. That's a bunch of cat.
Okay.
All right, you wanted to apologetic. I'm mute you real quick because your background is loud. All right, so you want to talk about number 4, right, MJD?
Yeah, the abortion aspect. Yeah.
All right, sure. Yeah, I do believe in abortion rights. Do you think that they should be restricted or not exist?
I do have a view on the pragmatics, but I'm curious because I feel like these conversations tend to be well, you posit your pragmatic view, I posit my pragmatic view, but we don't really understand the moral side of it or why we feel that's even okay for the thing in the first place. So I was curious if you have an argument as to why it's morally okay for the case of abortion.
Yeah, just
the application.
The morality comes from me from bodily autonomy. We all have a right to our own body and should have a decision on what's going to happen in our own body. And no entity has the right to feed off your resources without you consenting to it. So if a woman doesn't consent to this other entity feeding off their resources, then she should have a right to remove it. Now, of course, there's going to be limits to everything, right? I believe after a certain amount of time, for example, at viability around 21, 22, 23 weeks, we should prioritize what's going to keep the baby alive because at that time they developed a lot more. They may have brain waves and a conscious experience, etc. So if an abortion is going to happen, and usually it doesn't happen unless like it's a miscarry or something like that. That's when they usually happen. That's when abortions usually happen, right? At that time. But let's say if we were to do abortions on 9 months, we should prioritize what's going to keep that baby alive if the mother does not want that entity in her body anymore. All that makes sense?
Yeah, and I just want to be very clear on a couple of things. One, I'd like to try to keep it one-on-one if possible. I mean, this is your live, but I've had bad experiences with trying to take 2 to 3 conversations on at once.
Yeah, sure. I'll talk to you for a while. If Bilford wants to add something, I'll ask him.
Yeah, okay, cool. And then secondly, so we have like a good conversation. We don't like talk past each other. Like, how do you define like 2 things? So what do you take abortion to be? And then I guess the next question is like, what do you take rights to be?
Abortion is the ending of a pregnancy, and rights. Oh man, I can never put this into correct words. I think rights are basically your authority to act. If I'm gonna give you a nebulous type of definition,
well, I mean,
that's what a right kind of is.
Maybe I can help you on the rights. Like, are you saying that when you say that someone has a right, you're saying that there's something that is owed to them via either like who they are, where they are, what their government allows? Like, that's what a right is to you, like an entitlement.
Right, and there are things that are inherent, like self-defense and
like life
and
property,
self-defense.
maybe. Okay.
Right.
Okay. That's fine. Like, I agree with that, and I also only take issue with like the lethal aspect of the abortion procedure. So I guess my next question is, we'll talk about the women's rights, but I'm curious: do you take the fetus to be valuable at any point, or do you take it to be valuable only at like viability or sentience, or when does the fetus become valuable to you?
Around sentience and viability, or around that time.
And you think that's around the same time period?
Yeah, I would say like that's around 21 to 22 weeks. I believe.
So I'm going to ask you, okay, is it more so viability, or is it more so sentience? Like, what I mean by that is, can there be a sentient thing, but let's just say we put that sentient thing, we put a person, underneath a pool, right? Obviously, that person is still valuable, even though they can't survive underwater. Like, if we took off their ability to breathe, then they obviously aren't alive. But we probably still say they're valuable because of some other property, right?
Like, after they are alive?
Like, if I just say, let's just say I kidnapped somebody, and I threw them into a pool, and I removed their ability. I took their, the protections, like I gave them an oxygen tank, and I took it off, and I threw them into a pool. That person wouldn't survive because they're not viable in water. I've taken them out of a place where they're viable. But we'd still say that there's something about them that is valuable, regardless of their ability to survive.
Yeah,
sentience would be that thing.
They're sentience. Right.
Okay,
sentience.
Cool. Okay, so sentience. And what do you take sentience exactly to be?
Like the ability to have like conscious experience, feeling, emotions, pain, conscious experience essentially.
Do you take sentience and consciousness to be synonymous?
Mostly, I think I would.
Can you have an unconscious? Well, I mean, do you take coma patients to be sentient?
Coma patients are sentient, yeah.
Okay, but they wouldn't be conscious, at least not.
They're just not conscious, yeah.
Okay, so you could have a non-sentient, or you could have a non-conscious sentient being. Okay, so those 2 things aren't synonymous then. I just wanted to clear that. Okay, cool. So by sentience, you probably take that to be like some subjective experience, like some first-person experience.
Yeah, some sort of subjective human experience.
Okay, what's the reason why the subjective experience is the thing that we should value?
I think because that's where personhood lies, essentially. Now, of course, philosophically, you can say personhood lies anywhere, right? But I think from when it comes to a scientific point, from what we know about, we don't know completely what consciousness is yet, but from what we know about consciousness and sense experience, sentience is where that starts. So that's why I take where personhood starts, because I can't prove a soul. You see what I mean?
You take sentience to be the point at which there's a person or some identity.
Right.
That thing is the value. Okay.
There's an individual person there, exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
And I can't prove a soul, which is why I don't take it from.
Well, I don't even think. I'm not going to go too far into that, but you don't really need to prove it's like like show this on like a chart or something. Like a soul can be anything. You don't need to prove it to give an argument for that. But back to what you were saying. So you take that person to exist around sentience. Okay. When it comes to like the sentience property, I'm just curious, why is it the case that when we talk about the identity, we're saying that it's, either relatable to some function or it's relatable to some like specific organ? Because I don't think, unless you do and you can correct me, I don't think you believe that all the person is synonymous to is like the brain or some function that the brain takes place in.
Like all a person is their brain?
Yeah, sentience is understood to be like, usually some sort of communication with various systems in the brain, which would allow for like a mind, and that mind would be the thing that has the subjective experience. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's either a function that the brain takes, or it's synonymous with saying, well, it's just the brain itself, the organ that does most of that function. But I don't think you believe that.
No, sentience is more of an emergent property of the brain. Yeah, I mean, it just emerges out of our neurons and our chemicals.
Like a function, then. So that's
it's a function, but it's valuable.
Can I also please? I'm sorry. Can I please interject and ask if you're relating to organs as the womb versus any other organ in your body?
Are you asking me or MJ?
Argument.
I'm sorry.
Argument.
Are you asking me that question or? Hello?
I was trying to be respectful and listen to you.
I don't know.
I was.
I don't know what you mean. Like, I take organs just to be like, like, I don't know, organs.
Part of the body.
I don't know how to reduce that. I mean, yeah, you could say like the organ is synonymous with the body, but I think that's kind of.
Yeah, I got you.
Like,
what was your? I got you. What was your next question though?
Yeah, sorry, that threw me off for a second. Okay,
yeah, sentience is like kind of a function of the of the brain. Now, is it the whole of what a person is? That's more of a philosophical question. But as far as we know, yeah, because once the brain goes dead, that's it. The person's gone.
Well, what if I gave you now, in order for something to be like. Not realistic, but it's sort of for like it to be a hypothetical. We have to know it's just something that's logically possible. That's like how it works. I have a lot of people who say, "Well, that's not realistic." All that matters is that's logically possible.
Yeah, sure.
But if we took the brain and the necessary components for those functions to take place, and we put it into like a container, do you think if I walked by and pushed that container off of a high shelf and it broke, do you think that I like harmed anyone or that I did some like a moral action from that? If that's all you take, like, the person to be, or, like, at least you take, that's the entity of value to be.
Right. So if we took their brain, all necessary components, and we kept their consciousness intact and, like, hooked up to like, a computer or something like that?
Yeah, we could suggest that we just, stimulated the same functions as if it was in the body, but it's just in, like, a glass jar. Mind you, there's no sensory systems, because essentially all sentience is, like, sentience is just a property or function the brain takes some information and translates it, but that translating part is like the key point because that's what the mind essentially is. It's like a translation of experiences.
Right. So if we were to take out a brain and put it in a jar somewhere and stimulate it for it to have sentience, but does it actually have sentience? Can we communicate it with it somehow, some way?
Well, to be clear, we can't communicate with a comatose patient. They also have sentience. So it's not necessary that you can communicate. All that matters is there are specific functions taking place within the brain. That's the entity or the subject or the property that you value.
There's limited ways to communicate with comatose patients, but like when it comes to like the brain, I think if you took it out and put it into a jar, into a vat, there's no because I'm not 100% sure how this works. I think it's an emergent property. If the brain is dead, there's
the brain's not on a lot, right? The brain is still functioning. It's still doing those functions. But
okay, so the brain is still doing their function. Okay, so the consciousness is still there. The person is still there. We just can't communicate with them.
I have a question.
If you knocked it over, you killed that person. Yeah, that'd be immoral.
So just to be clear, and I want to make sure I got that through. That the brain is the brain or the function, the property the brain has is the thing of value, and that thing of value, if it was the brain, we'll say like the brain and the brainstem placed into a vat. Mm-hmm. Okay, and if somebody came and pushed that vat off of a high shelf and it broke, you consider somebody to have done something wrong there, like you.
Because the conscious experience is still there. The way you're explaining it, for me, the way I'm understanding it, is always took the brain and the spine out. They just don't have the body anymore, but the person is still there. The conscious experience is still there. They might not be able to see anything or communicate with us, but there's still a conscious experience. Like who was that girl who was blind and deaf and had to learn how to communicate with the world. I forgot her name. Yeah, her Helen Keller. Yeah, exactly. It's just like Helen Keller. So, like, if you were to, assault Helen Keller, yeah, you did something wrong. So, in the same situation as this one, even though the person can't see or hear, they still have a conscious experience the way that you're explaining it. So, not getting over is you assaulting that person.
Well, I'm not sure. We maybe could talk about the semantics of consciousness, but I don't think that's too important. The point I'm trying to illustrate is that the thing that you value is essentially just a property that the brain takes, and if the brain in the simplest form, so just the brain and the brainstem, was placed into some vat, you take that to be a subject of value, and I just think that's like a little absurd. I don't know if people intuitionally would agree that when we talk about who you and I are, and we have conversations, we have these interests.
Hold on, Revise, because I think Bilford had a question before you. I'm gonna get to him. I'm gonna get to you. But yeah, MJD, what you were saying?
We have these certain interests. I don't think people look at that and say, well, the person that we're talking about is just an organ that has a specific, process. I don't think that's what people think about intuitionally. I think there's other
we don't think that intuitively.
Identity.
No, understood. We don't say that intuitively. Like, if a person were to say who I am, they're not going to be like, oh, he has 1,050 wrinkles in his brain, and that's who Volsi is. They're going to be like, oh, he's a bald black guy from Florida. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we're going to take everything else. Like, intuitively, we don't say the brain is all a person is. I agree with that. It's just that for the purpose of this hypothetical, yeah, if we were to able to have a functioning brain and stem, and we know that there's still a conscious experience there, then yeah, I will still consider that person valuable, or whatever it would be at that point.
Question, but I know that the other people on the panel wanted to talk.
Yeah, I got you. Bilford had a question for you, and then Revise had a question for you. Bilford, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to say that just the dialogue that you guys have already had, the host handled pretty much my thoughts on it pretty well. So y'all pretty much covered it, but I noticed you were kind of quick firing a lot of questions at him in the beginning and going down this logic train with him. And I mean, I knew where it was going. So, like, if you'll indulge me, whether you agree or not, I kind of just wanted to do the same thing with you and just kind of rapid fire some questions at you. Okay, so, like, your moral objection is that you think that it's unaliving an entity. Is that fair to say?
Well, I'll clarify the view. I have two moral objections to the argument for pro-choice. I suggest that the entity of value is going to be essentially the being at conception, and I can give my motivations for that. The second objection is that in the case where, consensually one action has taken place that puts another entity of value, which I posit is the fetus or the being at conception, when that being is in a state of dependency via some direct action, I think you're obligated to that being because you place him in that position.
Okay. I won't argue against that because that argument's already been made, but I will go with the first objection. So, would you agree that... I'm trying to use TikTok-friendly language, so sorry if I pause. Would you agree that, like, schmurder is bad because it causes harm?
Fiance was calling. Can you repeat the question?
Just in simple terms, you'd say that schmurder is bad because it causes harm? You still there? Anyway, I assume he might need to talk to his fiance, but the point I'm getting to is that if schmurder is bad because it's harmful, and all schmurder is harmful, then a being has to be able to experience harm. So, in order to experience harm, you need to have some concept of subjective reality, meaning to have these life experiences you guys were talking about in your conversation, basically. So, when an entity or a being lacks those sort of experiences of sentience and, like, past, present, or future experiences, you cannot rob them of something that they've never experienced. And that's really all I was going to say.
Gotcha.
I think that's a good
MJD.
point.
Yeah, MJD had to drop real quick because he glitched out, but he's coming right back.
Yeah, sorry, my fiance called me asking me about clothes.
All good. And I think Revised had a question for you, or did you want to answer Bilford first?
I didn't get to hear the question. I'm telling you, I didn't get to hear my fiance called twice in a row. So, I didn't hear your objection.
Version.
Yeah, okay.
I'll just give you the quick version, so we can move on. Basically, I'm whether you agree or not, this is my own logic train with it. If your moral objection is that murder is bad because it causes harm, basically that in order for a being to understand what it means or have any concept of harm, they have to have subjective reality, meaning to cause harm is to rob them of potential past, present, or future experiences, but as a developing being that lacks viability and sentience, it has no concept of harm, and therefore it can't experience it. Is basically what I was getting at.
Well, I'll respond, but I know other people wanted to talk, so.
Yeah, and yeah, we're actually almost done. I think Revised had one more question for you. Revised, what was your question?
My question kind of ties in there to the food stamps. Whomever else spoke. Medicaid. I believe it was Bill Ford. So, first off, the brain in a vat that you're talking about, are you postulating that it has no input-output once it's in this vat?
Okay, I'll answer your question. So the brain in the vat suggests that the brain is still able to play that function even without the sensory information. Essentially, it all does is translate. That function of translation still occurs even if no information comes directly to it. Because we see bare glimpses of this like early in pregnancy, like around like the 9 to 13 week mark. We see like something being translated, but it's nothing like
What do you mean translated?
Like the brain. Okay, so the brain takes information that the sensory nerves give out, or
okay. So with no sensory input whatsoever, is this brain in a vat in this situation there from birth, or
I don't know why
take this brain at age 20 and stick it in a jar?
We took the brain. Well, I don't know if you're pausing like a past thing, but to answer that question, we just essentially took like a 20-year-old's brain, like the function that it needs, put it into a vat. Nothing else exists. Okay. Like the body, like the eyeballs, like the fingernails. Well, that's nothing about that is like a full person. If you get that.
Okay, so I would say that a brain in a vat with no input-output at age 20 could still be thinking about the input-output that it's received. The input that it's received. But sort of what Bill Ford was saying, if it hasn't experienced anything, I don't think it is anything. I don't think it is sentient nor a person. It hasn't, there's no bundle of impressions there. So what is it? It's just the potential for something.
Well,
and I don't think potential is quite meets the threshold for a person.
I'd like to clarify, but I know that
I can actually back that up because I can tell by your voice that I am older than you, and I can also let you know that no, I'm not talking. I'm sorry, I'm talking to MJD.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
But I can also
I know I'm out of time here. Real quick, I just want to finish.
I can tell.
Okay.
I can tell because you have a baby in the background. I understand. Age does matter because age equals experience. Age equals experience. It does. So I can also tell you that by your age, and I'm guesstimating, I was already dealing with things from my childhood that, like, hey, I kind of wish I was one of those brains in a vat because I had too much sensory input. You see what I'm saying? So there's a very good point going here with, like, if you don't have enough external output being put into a brain, then you don't understand what life is.
All right. Give me one second, guys. MJD, like, yeah, we are at the 15-minute mark, and I appreciate you being up here. I think you just have one last thing to say, and then I'm gonna talk to Gwendolyn. All right. What was the last thing you should say?
Yeah. Okay. I did want to respond to those things, but I guess another time is fine. I don't know what that last little bit was. I don't know what that addressed. I do have objections to your guys' critique. But that's a long conversation. So
not a problem. Let's do this. Go ahead and take a lap. If I'm still here when you wanna come on, go ahead and come back up, and we'll talk more about it. All right.
Drop me the algorithm like set when people drop it.
Not a problem. I appreciate you. All right, y'all. I appreciate MJD being up. All right, so Gwendolyn, go ahead and let me hear from your racism about the blacks and taking handouts. What do you got? Go ahead, come off mute, Gwendolyn. No, don't be scared now. You was feeling froggy. Go ahead and leap. So, what is it about the blacks taking handouts? Because last I checked, there were also white people on Medicaid and food stamps, right?
Of course there are. Did I ever say it was just illegals and black people?
So why'd you only mention illegals and black people? Why'd you only mention us?
Oh, I'm just used to saying it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that kind of invokes the fact of racism. But what handouts do you think that I want? Because universal health care will be for everybody, not just black people.
You realize our country's in $37 trillion in debt right now, right?
Yeah, sure. A lot of that debt comes from our crappy medical system.
From Democrats.
So we should kind of fix it, right? So we should fix our healthcare system because a lot of that debt comes from that.
Hey, Gwendolyn, do you know what happens when everyone pays back everything they owe all at once?
What happens?
Debt goes down.
The entire money system evaporates.
Really?
Yes.
They didn't teach me
it's entirely
the University
built
of
on
Washington, where I got 2 college degrees. They didn't tell me.
What is your college degree in?
I have one in speech communications and one in business.
Well, they wouldn't have mentioned much about how fiat currency is a house of cards.
They didn't teach me that.
They wouldn't have.
I got a job right out of college at Xerox. You know who Xerox is?
Appreciate that, Moff. All right, so Gwendolyn,
Never heard of Xerox? It's a Fortune 500 business machine.
Hold on.
I got that job.
Gwendolyn, chill out. Please chill out. Okay. So a lot of people haven't heard of Xerox because they're younger. Remember, they weren't born in the 80s like I was.
I was just being sarcastic. I'm sorry.
So. No, it's fine, Revis. It's not a slight on you. A lot of young people never heard of Xerox. It's fine. But Gwendolyn, if you graduated in business, then you must have heard of fiat currency, right? You know that we got off the gold standard, and the way the monetary system around the world works is through debt.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, you know.
All I know is that when Biden was president, we had 9%
inflation.
And now we have 2% inflation.
Okay.
How did that happen?
Because like when it comes to government policies, especially when it comes to the president's policies, you don't see the effects until like about 2 years after. Under Biden, we had a high inflation rate because of the things that happened during COVID. Trade policy.
It was 7% when Trump took over.
Right,
7% when Trump took over 6 months ago. That was 5 years ago was COVID.
Right. 5 years ago was COVID. 5 years ago was COVID, and because of supply chain issues, we saw a higher inflation rate. Now that those supply chain issues are being repaired, we're seeing less inflation.
Okay. I have one I think I might be able to stump you with.
Sure.
Okay. So for my job for the last 10 years, I've worked for a huge Fortune 100 medical diagnostic capital equipment company. I sell chemistry analyzers, immunoassay analyzers, hematology analyzers, and coag analyzers to rural hospitals. I have 50 hospitals in my Sarah in Idaho. Not one of them is closing. And my customers are the laboratory director and the CEOs and CFOs of these hospitals. I call on them all the time, have for 10 years. They say we have no plans of closing the hospital.
Okay.
Well, make that make sense to me.
If the people you're selling to have no plans to close their business, I'm not sure what you want me to explain. They have no plans to close their business.
Because didn't Joaquin, what's his face, get up for 8.5 hours and fearmonger everybody that their rural hospital was going to be closed because of the big beautiful bill?
Oh yeah, sure.
You guys are saying that the whole time.
Okay, you're talking about the big beautiful bill. So when it comes to the big beautiful bill, there is actually some rural hospitals that closed. There was one rural hospital. I'm not sure which state that was, either Kansas or Nebraska, that did close because they know that they're going to get cuts to Medicaid and they depend on that. Now, when it comes to the rural hospitals, when it comes to those rural hospitals, some of them might be getting closed because we haven't seen the effects of the big beautiful bill yet. If it goes through, that they depend on that Medicaid, then they may very well be closing.
No, not one of 50 in my territory.
Right? Do they depend on Medicaid?
They depend on Medicaid. What the fuck do you think?
If they depend on Medicaid, then they're going to be rolling their services back, or they may shut down completely. They're not going to be able to keep up their services while they still depend on Medicaid and gets cut.
To a CFO of a rural hospital. You go tell him that. And
right.
Bring your proof.
So you're saying that this CFO depends on Medicaid, but you're saying that the CFO depends on Medicaid for his hospital to run, but the Medicaid is being cut and he's not going to cut back on services?
Nope, not at all, because you guys are lying through your teeth.
Okay.
That's what the big bill does.
Big cap. How can Medicaid be the majority of your funding? How can Medicaid be the majority of the funding of some place? It gets cut and they do not cut services. That's cap.
It's not getting cut. You thought.
Hold on. So this hospital depends on Medicaid or it doesn't?
Who's smarter?
Does it depend on Medicaid or does it not? Gwendolyn, does it depend on Medicaid or does it not?
I told you it does, and they're not.
All right. So if it does depend on Medicaid, if the majority of their funding comes from Medicaid. So the majority of their so they don't depend on Medicaid because the majority of their funding doesn't come from Medicaid.
Gwendolyn, you have a computer, right? Or your phone?
Depend on Medicaid. Of course I do.
Okay,
but
Gwendolyn, listen to what I'm. Gwendolyn, shut the fuck up and listen to what I'm saying. Shut the hell up and listen for a second. You're a crazy person. You're a crazy woman. Okay? I asked you a very clear question. Does it depend on Medicaid? You said yes. If a hospital is being mostly funded by Medicaid and that Medicaid gets cut, there is no way they're going to be able to keep those services. There's no way they're going to be able to keep those services.
May I speak?
Yes, they are.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. You don't know.
Go ahead, realize.
Okay. There's a service where I live called Operation Border Health Event. It helps migrants, people who just got here. I live in one of the poorest regions. Actually, I live in the poorest region in the United States, right by the border to Mexico. We still have colonias here. Those are like kind of like trailer parks, but they don't have running water. They don't have electricity, stuff like that, right? This has been going on for dozens of years, and they are canceling it. They just announced it today. But they are canceling.
That's good. That's New Mexico. That's not Washington, Oregon, or Idaho.
It's not Mexico. It's the United States. I said it's near Mexico.
Oh, good. There's 120
Good. There's little babies that won't be getting their vaccines.
120 sales reps I work with.
There are babies who need. Do you ever shut up? Never.
No, she doesn't.
There are
That's why she's about to get dropped.
Will be negatively affected. There are pregnant women who won't get any maternal health care because of this. said that they're shutting it down because they cannot afford to do it this year because of the cuts in the big beautiful bill. So I don't care about your 50 rural hospitals. I have one example right here that's going to affect hundreds of thousands of people in my community that I live with, that I love.
It was signed a few days ago. How's that?
And they put this press release out today.
All right. So there is no way that a facility that depends gets huge funding from a certain system that gets huge funding from a certain system would not be able to depend on that funding anymore and not cut services. Your CFO is lying to you, or your cap.
Okay, my CFO of my hospitals were lying.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on, guys. And I appreciate everybody's for being here. If you are in the comments and you disagree with something that I have on the board, go ahead and reply and come on up. Ben, you said that reparations are stupid. Go ahead and come on up and explain to me why the government shouldn't fix what they broke. Go ahead and come on up, Ben. Hey, I'm sorry about that, but I do appreciate you all being here. I'm probably gonna take one more guest before I get out of here. Yo, Math, you there? Math is a homie of mine.
Well, you were never a slave, so how can I give you reparations for being a slave?
Okay, Ben. Go ahead and answer me your question.
Never a slave?
Hey, Ben. Follow my rules. Number one, are you over 18, and what do you disagree with?
I told you, yeah, I'm over 18. I'm saying, how can I give reparations to somebody that was never a slave?
You're not giving them, and reparations wouldn't only be for slavery.
No, you're wanting reparations for something that had happened 160 years ago that didn't affect
Redlining did not happen 160 years ago, and it's still. Hey, Ben, stop. Ben, slow down. Ben, slow down, and be quiet for a second. Listen to what I'm actually saying. Ben, listen to what I'm actually saying.
I'm telling you, man.
Listen to what I'm actually saying. Hold on.
You ever a victim?
Do you want to listen to you want to have a conversation or not, Ben? Let's have a conversation.
Telling you.
Let's have a conversation. I'm gonna mute you again. If you don't get off mute. Don't get off mute. Don't ask me if I'm a victim.
Are you a
victim? Do not get off mute again. Do not get off mute and do not ask me that question again. Listen to what I'm actually gonna say.
You're not a victim. You don't deserve reparations. That's how it works.
Okay, get your bitch ass out of here. Again, reparations will not only be for slavery, they'll be for redlining. Redlining did not happen 150 years ago, you fucking moron. Redlining was 40 years ago, and it still affects people today, you idiot. All right, Moff, how's it going, bro?
See, how you feeling?
I'm all right. I'm doing all right. How's it going? Hey, yo, Ben, you're not coming back up here because you don't know how to have a conversation. Until you know how to have a conversation, then you can come back up. Until then, stay your ignorant bitch ass in the comments.
Hey,
all right.
After Math, could you? I just had a question about number 5. That's it.
Yeah, sure. How's it going? All right. So, yeah, Moff. How's it going, bro? I've been doing all right. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to see you back, bro.
Yeah, man. So I took a break for a while. Not only that, last week was like 4th of July week, so I had to spend it with my lady and my family.
Yes, sir.
So.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. How was your 4th?
Chill this time. I didn't really do nothing. I stayed at home with the family. We just ordered some wings, bro. We just chilled. We didn't even barbecue like normal. It's all good.
Yeah. I went down to Miami to see fam, and my dad's church always does something on the beach. And I saw one of my homegirls that I grew up with. She was like, "Man, don't nobody we grew up with come out no more. Shit was lame." She said next year she's gonna make it lit because I have a homeboy. I actually got 2 homeboys who just got out of prison for 25 years. They've been in prison since like 2007.
Goddamn.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And they just got out. So now that they out, we're gonna go ahead and take them to next year 4th of July, and turn up. You feel me? Because they've been in there for a while.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
And you know them that whole 25 years?
Yeah. Because I grew up with them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I grew up with them in the church, and then in 2007, when I was in college, my sister told me, "Oh, Nehemi got locked. Oh, Jofani got locked." I'm like, "Damn!" And then they told me Dean went to jail. My homie Dean. I'm like, "Damn, Dean went to jail too." But Dean is not out yet. I'm not sure what's going on with Dean. I think Dean got 30. But yeah, Jofani and Naheem, they had 25. Jofani originally had life, but they brought it back down to 25, and then he got out. Which I'm happy for.
Are they still Christian? Like, did they go to the event?
Yeah. There's still Christian, but Jofani, he's in a halfway house, so they can't let him out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they can't let him out. But he does have a job now. He's doing pretty. He's doing okay. He goes to his halfway house. He doesn't break curfew. He goes to his job, goes back home. So he's doing all right.
Man, tell them boys to get in the trades, man. It's never too old. It's never too late to get in the trades. So.
Oh yeah. Last time I spoke to him, I was like, hey, when you out of the halfway house, walk onto a union. You know what I mean? Walk onto one of the electrician unions in Miami.
Yep.
In Miami, we have a lot of pipe welder unions.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I told him walk onto one of those and try to get something. So yeah, it'll be good for them. I'm gonna go see them the next time I'm down there. I'm gonna go see them.
Gotcha. But hey, while I'm here, I do want to get your views on number 5 and number 7.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind, I know we normally don't debate, but I'm kind of interested. So free college. I don't think free college is good. Why do you think that it is?
I think that it is because that's what we had before black people started going. The only reason why we don't have free college is because we started going. That's the only reason. But the second reason why I think that would be a good thing, what I would pair free college with, is every high school in America having a program where the students graduate with some sort of trade, like either a pipe welder trade or plumbing, like how you do, or electricians. If you're in the Houston area, you need a plumber. Follow my homeboy Moth, great plumber, right? He's right up here in the comments. Follow him. If you live in Texas and you need a plumber, here he is. All right, so I think every high school across the country should have a system where they graduate the students with one of those, right? And what that would do is that would have a lot of high schooler kids like who are 17, 18 years old. A lot of them will just go straight into the workforce, and that will lessen the amount of people that will need to be in these college courses. And then we'll be able to, the cost of college will drop down, and we'll be able to fund it. But the reason why I believe that it would be good for our society is because a more educational society is much more competitive, and is much more productive. Every society that is not as educated is not as productive as we are. You see what I'm saying? So if we have a much more educated society, we'll produce more. It'll be more profitable for business as well, because they can recruit more talent. And not only that, if we have every high school graduate with a trade, there's going to be people who don't need to be in college in the first place.
Hey, can I just jump in here?
Sure.
I totally agree with that. Oh my God, I agree with that so much. Because this is, I think, actually the next supposed billionaire class that's supposed to come out of this country, or like anything maybe globally connected. Who knows? But no, people that are in trades, they need to unionize. They already have, obviously. But we need to do some sort of global collective with like trade workers, because they are the people that are the most useful people to everybody right now. Plumbers, like electricians, and like tree trimmers, and all of these other people. And I also think that it has not been something that has been allowed to certain demographics. For instance, I was brought up in like I'm white. I was a minority among black and Chinese people when I was growing up, and then I went into a more white Arabic dominated high school. So I've kind of always been like on the outskirts. Like I understand where I understand people's struggles. Anyway.
Right. Gotcha. You might give me a second. I think Revise had a question for me. Revise, what was your question?
I was just asking about the number 5.
Yeah. End the war on substances. Yeah, we need to end that. What was your question?
What, do you want to end it like make them all legal and treat it?
I want to end it and decriminalize it and treat it.
Okay. Yep. Got it.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Flushing Pie, and then Scythe might be my last person. All right, Flushing Pie, are you over 18, and do you disagree with something I have on the board?
Yeah, I'm 28, but I don't actually disagree. That's why I didn't join. I agree with everything you have up there. So
Gotcha. Give me 1 second. Scythe, are you there?
Yo, what's up?
Chillin'. Are you over 18, and do you disagree with anything I have on the board?
I'm 19, so yeah, I'm over 18. I actually, did when I was in high school, and I don't want to yap too long, but you are so on point, and I'm so glad that you're pointing out that those programs exist. I know a Dutch guy, a German guy. There's so many different immigrants that come here, or their families come here, and my family too, to Louisiana to have those schooling programs. I know how to weld, and they make good fucking money.
Gotcha. Give me 1 second, Scythe. Give me 1 second.
Just good work ethic, and you're good, bro. Those schooling programs are amazing.
Gotcha. Give me 1 second, Scythe. Moth, you back? Moth must have got another call.
I'm here. Yes, I am actually. I'm not rude, so I just let people cook. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. But I hope you heard everything that I said about
Yes, sir.
what I said about free college. Yeah, so I think I would pair it with that. Pair it with trades in high school, and then there'll be less people in college, and the cost will go down, and then we actually can fund it. I think we can fund it now if we reprioritized our issues. But I understand why that's hard to do, and that's why might not be the case. But that's how I would fund free college. That makes sense?
That was one of the biggest. Damn, it's kind of crazy because that was the biggest problem I had was how we're going to fund it. Second problem I have, Valsi, is like I believe we're at 40% of people dropping out of college when they go.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have a shortage on tradesmen, like 100%. So I didn't think about, but if you mix trades in college, I like that a lot. It wasn't something I considered. But still, the 40% is still there, though, Valsi. Second, people that goes to college, 20% of them actually do what they went to college for? And I think that's also kind of, I don't think it's going to help with jobs, basically, because the average person that have a degree is probably not making the money they went to school for, right? And yes, you got people like me who's getting into the trades where we can be successful. Hell, I would even argue that if you're a man, I think you should pay for college, and if you're a woman, you should get it for free. Because I think for them, it's a little better. And for us, we can just work. We have, as long as we're physically able to, we can go out and get in the trade. So I'm not against free college, but I'm definitely against it for men because we do have trades and we're short.
Okay, yeah, I can understand that, and I know which viewpoint you're coming from, right? So I do get it. Now, the reason why, I understand the whole funding issue, and of course the viewpoint that you're coming from, which is why I said, every high school across the country should have, just trade, so every single student graduates with one, right?
Right.
Now, I'm not against free college for men either, because there are men out there who do still want to become doctors, engineers, physicists. Even philosophers. To tell you the truth, it's kind of crazy. People get PhD in philosophy. I don't know what they do with it, but they do get PhDs in philosophy.
That's another story. Yeah,
that's another story. And people, who go to school for I forgot what I was saying, like English and shit like that, to become teachers and professors. So yeah, there are going to be people who go to college still, which is why I'm not against it being there for men. And not only that, I'm not sure how that would work. If the men are gonna have to pay for it, I guess that would lead to might lead to less cost, but that might lead to some issues, because just like how you said, for example, you said the 40% are dropping out, right?
Yes, sir.
I think the 40% are dropping out because of what we said. They don't actually want to be there. They're just there because they were told they'll be there for success. But if we start off in high school with a trade, that 40% will probably drop down to about 10 or 15, because the people who would have dropped out of college aren't going there because they went straight into the workforce, if that makes sense. The second thing, I think it would be beneficial towards men, because right now men are not enrolling in college as much, especially black men. We're not enrolling in college as much, but I think it's because a lot of us are just going into the workforce. I would, just like how you could, because you bring up a good point about academia. A lot of people are not earning money from what they actually earned a degree from.
Yes,
there
sir.
is issues in academia. Like, I don't deny that at all. There are a lot of people on my side of things that don't want to touch academia, but we need to buckle down and admit, yeah, there's a lot of issues in academia. There's papers that get funded that shouldn't be funded. There's work that goes out there. There's a bunch of crap. You know what I'm saying? It's built off profit motive instead of actual research. You see what I'm saying? And not only that, a lot of these colleges are more geared towards just getting butts in the seat to make the money, and not to actually educate the students or have them think outside the box. There's a lot of issues within academia that we could fix. And I think starting off with high schools having trades and taking away the profit motive of schools to just get people in the seats in order to make money would open them up more to expanding, actually what people are supposed to be learning instead of, just trying to get butts in the seats. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I would even say one of the solutions could be that with your plan with them going to high school and pretty much forcing them to graduate with a trade, maybe that trade can finance them for 4 years. They can make enough money to pay for college versus women don't have that same opportunity, right? Sure, they can get in trades, but it's way harder for them. And I know that from experience. I won't even hire a woman, respectfully. So, I know that from experience. It's just something that we just don't do. It's something that we still frown upon in America. We're not there yet. We won't be for a long time still. So for women, I'm almost saying, like, I want to get them free college because I would like to see, obviously, more nurses, more teachers, which is good for healthcare and education. Like, just like you something that you really care about. I know that. They are natural nurses. I feel good with a female nurse over a male nurse. I'm sure you do too. You know what I mean? That's just how it is.
I'm just gonna clear some things up because my audience is gonna be asking a lot. Moth is very, very traditional, y'all. He's very, very traditional. He does believe in certain roles. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Like male nurses, a male nurse doesn't make sense to him, but a woman nurse does. A male doctor makes sense to him. A woman doctor, not that much. These are just traditional things. Yeah. So Moth is extremely traditional. Now I do gotta tell you, Moth, I do disagree. Whoever does the job does the job. I don't really care if they man or female. Now, I was in the military. I was a technician. In my field in the military, there were not a lot of women. I mean, there were not a lot. So now we did have to lift very heavy things. I'm not saying that women can't do it, but a lot of women were discouraged from doing it because lifting and all the technical stuff that goes into it, they're not socialized to really go for that type of stuff. You feel what I'm saying? So I think that's the difference that I would say. The only reason why there's not a lot of women in these things because they're not socialized to do it. But that's a thing that
they're discouraged from. They're
discouraged, exactly,
because they're a woman.
Right, exactly. So I don't think they can't do it, or they have less of an ability, or they're not as good at it as men. They're just not socialized, or they're discouraged from doing it. And that's more of a societal, social issue than the jobs issue. I'm pretty sure if we have a shortage of 100,000 electricians. They're gonna take all of them. You know what I'm saying? Because we need the electricians, right? So I don't think that part matters as much. But yeah, these trades tend to be very male, very traditional heavy. Yeah, you know what I mean? All that makes sense, Moff?
Yes, sir. No, I don't agree with if 100,000 women showed up right now to apply for the union. I don't think they're all going to get hired. But yeah. I'm serious, bossy.
They're still there. I get you.
Can I ask you a question, Math?
Yes, ma'am.
Who showed up in World War II?
That was different. All the men was. Look. Let's wait. Let's be clear. I'm not saying a woman can't do it, right? I never said that. That was never something that I said. A woman can. Hell, it's times that I need help with carrying stuff in the house, and I have my girl come help me. It is what it is. A woman can lift just like we can lift. But I'm not saying that you guys are, what's that word? Inferior. Incapable or inferior. I just think that we're just not there yet.
You have traditional roles.
It's not even about the role, right? It's not. I don't think it's about. I am traditional. I'm not going to lie about that, but I don't think it's about the role per se. It's just about reality.
I'll just let you know that since I was 12 years old, I've been fighting this traditional woman role.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, why can't I cut the grass? I thought it was fun.
I mean, you can cut the grass. I'm not against you. If you want to do that, I mean, hey, I'll buy you the lawnmower. That's fine. You know what I mean? Like, you can cut the grass. You
But
can do
no,
whatever
my
you want to
grandma
do.
told me I couldn't.
That's your grandma. That's not a mafia. That's my name, by the way.
Oh,
I mean,
but
you know what I mean?
I just love the name of mafia.
That is a really good name.
I'm just saying.
Respectfully, I'm not your grandma. Respectfully.
No,
So
I'm just saying
society.
that's society now.
I got you. Time everybody for me for just really quick. Yeah. So just so we can not talk past each other, right? So yeah, I think what Moff is saying is that he's not against. He's a very traditional person, but he's not against someone going outside of that, and he wouldn't force anyone to be in those things. But because he's a traditional person, he does, because he's seen like in his field of employment. He does. They're very, very traditional as well. He doesn't see women getting into that force in a higher rate as of right now because of how male heavy and male centered it is. Even though it can happen one day, he doesn't believe that we're in a society yet where that is going to happen, and he may not even be ready for that. Does all that make sense, Moff?
I do agree, but also it's one of these things too, where it's like there is some women that want to get dirty, right? But if we was to do a poll right now, and we was to ask, 100 women, hey, how many of you want to actually stand in some shit water? I don't know if I can say that or not.
No, you can say it.
I'm sorry, but yeah, I don't know what I can and can't say.
I don't think men would want to say they want to do that either.
I mean, I'm just trying to say there is. I would say it's probably. I bet you'll be more men than women that say they're down to do it. Though.
It depends on the. I think it would depend on the pay. I think with men, we would expect that type of job to probably pay us $50,000 to $60,000 a year. So we'd be like, yeah, I'll do it because I could use a $60,000 a year job. Where and this is not. I'm gonna want to make it clear. This is how women are socialized. It's not. Every woman out there. This is not just how you're socialized.
Exactly.
So I think more women would be like, oh, $60,000 a year, I ain't doing that. But if you offer her $120,000 a year, generally they'll be like, yeah, I'll do it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's more money. But that's the way women are socialized as of now. Men will be more willing to take, a shit job if it pays, decently. But a lot of women on average will probably say, you need to pay me more for me to do a shit job like that, which is honestly, us men should probably take cue from women on that. Yeah.
Yes, demand more.
So yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, have you polled women recently? Like,
have I polled women? What do you mean by that?
Polled,
P-O-L-L-E-D.
Yeah, I got you. I misheard you.
Have you polled them on whether or not they'd like to do a shit job for more money or do what they're doing now?
Vossi,
I'm assuming. I think I'm assuming.
Wait. Vossi, you've been in many rooms. You've been in many rooms with me in the past. I mean, over the course of the last 4-7 years, who knows? You heard me do many polls with women. You know I respect women. You know how you know where I stand with women. I mean, yeah. So I mean, you can even say from experience, like I've done that poll. You know that. Like I've had these same conversations in many groups where every woman was like, "Yeah, fuck that." Let's be honest.
And in our because one thing
that's not a poll. No.
I mean, but it's literally if it's 100 women in a group, and I'm asking those 100 women, "Hey, would you do this?"
Okay.
And let's say 70 of them are saying no, I won't, or 80 say that's a poll.
Okay,
that's a poll. That's not a poll that is indicative
I'll
of
clarify
the entirety of the.
Hold on. Everybody pause for me real quick. Everybody pause for me real quick. I'm sorry. All right, so I think
I will clarify.
Gotcha.
I will clarify. Have you done a scientific poll?
There you go.
I mean, a scientific poll. I mean, what is? I mean, I live
feel
in
like
reality.
that means that you actually have to poll a random number of people, and specifically women.
Are you not a random person I'm talking to right now?
But that's not what when people say poll, they're saying, are you taking in place, like you're not being.
I feel like this is.
You can do a poll on Clubhouse if you wanted to.
Hey guys, everybody pause. Hold on, everybody pause.
I also have to introduce myself, so I apologize.
No problem, Anarchy. I'm gonna let you go next. All right, everybody pause. So, me and Moff, of course, have not done scientific polls. We haven't gotten, a sample size of 5,000 women, 1,000 black, 1,500 white. We haven't done that, right? We haven't done a scientific poll. These are just like personal conversations we've been having, right? Anecdotal, right? But the other thing that I would say is that we do live in I'm going to use those words, a patriarchal and misogynistic society. We do live in one of those, right? Yep. And a lot of women do have internalized patriarchy and misogyny. Absolutely. And yes. For me, I can speak to from my culture personally, because I'm from the West Indies. My parents are from Haiti. My mother is very patriarchal. So yeah, she sees a nurse being a woman and a doctor being a man, like how Moth sees it. She sees it that way, you feel me? But
that's almost going against your prompt, though, host, because you're asking, like, the things that you're putting on this prompt go against the traditions, the so-called traditions of this country, right?
No, yeah, of course. Like, I agree with you.
If your mom might be patriarchal, there's stuff that my mom, even though she would consider herself not necessarily a feminist, but a womanist. She would consider herself a womanist, but if she see a woman on the television on the news with her breast out, she'd be like, she doing too much, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So like, there's stuff that get called into that space because we still all have internalized things that we're pulling out.
Right.
That then doesn't mean then, like, because the thing that I had an issue with my saying is, like this, like no, without disrespect, I wouldn't hire her. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how is that not disrespectful? Like, how is that not sort of...
Right, I got you.
Help me out with that, yeah.
No, I got you. So, just to make it clear, I think we need to, dismantle those systems, patriarchy, misogyny. We definitely need to. I probably still have misogynistic views that I don't even know. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, it's something that we need to work to dismantle, right? Now, when it comes to Moff saying that he wanted to hire a woman, yeah, 100% disagree as long as she does the job. The reason why, like, I kind of, well, not kind of, I see where he's coming from because I was raised in a culture like that. So, like, I could like see the angle. You can
understand where he's coming from.
Understand where he's coming from, but not agree.
While still pushing back. And here's my thing. Here's why. And I actually came. I wanted to come up for the trade conversation. But the reason why I really, really want to come up was with that sort of that little quip that came up was like, and no disrespect, I wouldn't hire a woman. And I'm saying, like, and what you were saying, even though I understand where you're coming from, especially because the entire premise of your prompt sort of leads me to believe that you're conscious of the entire, like, patriarchy and the systemic issues that show up in our society and how to push back on that. But I am saying that that's not what happened in this particular moment. I think that because you know him, they were like, well, I know him. I'm giving him space in that space to allow for that. Yep. And I don't know that we can have a space where we engage in conversations about what patriarchy looks like and what women can or cannot do, what labor is or what labor is not, right? And without really sort of like pushing back. We can push back on our friends, for sure. We can challenge our friends in a way that's like with all due respect, right? For example, like, because as I'm hearing you say, or not necessarily you, but Ma say, like, well, I've polled however many people. I can look through history and look at what specifically Black women have done in history and what those labored jobs have looked like, right, and have entailed. So for me, that doesn't align. That doesn't make sense. If that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. When it comes to, I'm sorry, my phone. I'm gonna let you go real quick. All right, just give me 1 second. But yeah, when it comes to Black society, when Black women have always been in the labor force and have always done the grunt work. Unfortunately, because Black people in Western society have always been in the lower rung, right? So, 100% agree with you. Now, when it comes to pushing back, perhaps I didn't do it as adequately as should have been done. But yeah, I don't agree with not hiring people because they're women, which is why I always say, as long as they could do the job, they could do the job. Like, I understand the traditional role, you know what I'm saying, of these jobs, but I would say that you should consider the talent first before the gender. Even if they're going to be asking for more, if they're going to be asking for more, It might be because they have the talent. Now, if they don't have the talent, don't pay them more, of course. But they do have the talent.
Y'all using traditional as a place, like a play card for, like, well, that's normality, right? Well, like, black people being enslaved was a normality for a great deal of this country. So when I hear somebody say traditional, for me, that doesn't read as if that is necessarily what we should sort of harken back to, or that is a part of like who we are naturally or innately, right? Or that our gender sort of like revert to that space. When I hear traditional, especially under the parameters of patriarchy or the parameters of white supremacy, I can't remove those things. And it seems like for some reason when we start talking about women traditional roles or what men do and things like that, for some reason the traditionality starts to go back to, like, the gender part of it seems to be something like, that's we can agree on that, as opposed to like if we start talking about like say like issues of racism or issues, like I don't understand how we can't sort of like figure out that they sort of all intertwine and intersect, and we can't sort of unpack all of those things.
Gotcha. I think with the way I use traditional, I'm using it in a way that someone like Moff would understand what I'm trying to say. You see what I'm saying? So I don't think like tradition means like that's the normal way or the right way to do it. Tradition should be broken. You feel what I'm saying? Especially if it's harmful.
That is not the way that Moff is using it at all.
Okay, like so.
And it seems like it seems like the same way if I were to sort of like placate whiteness, right? That sounds like fragility, right? That sounds like instead of like sort of like pushing back on, because and to your credit, you did push back on it, but your pushback on it came with a caveat. Your caveat was, I know him, and if you guys don't know him, that's who he kind of is, right? For me, I would have a problem if somebody came up and said, like, respectfully, I don't want to hear black people, like black people can't do that job. That's the same thing that I heard when he said, respectfully, I'm not going to hire a woman to do that job. That is the same thing in my brain. That's what I heard. If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I get guests who say exactly what you said all the time. Like they come up here and say, I don't think black people should do this. And I talk to them the same way. I'd be like, why not? And I go through the entire dialectic. You feel me? I guess that's kind of how I speak to people, right? Yeah. So with me, I think someone said in the comments, I kind of want to talk to people in a language that they'll understand. You see what I'm saying? So it's like when I'm using traditional, I'm thinking that me and Moff are using it the same way. Not that it's only the norm, quote unquote, normal way to do things, because we've only done it for 300, 400, 500 years. But the way that I see that quote unquote tradition is that it's harmful. Now there are some traditions that are not harmful, right? Like family reunions. That's a tradition, but it's not harmful. But this tradition that we have of gender roles and patriarchy and misogyny that all comes in together, that is a harmful tradition that we need to get rid of. And part of that tradition is him saying he won't hire a woman. So I said, yeah, that's the quote unquote traditional view. That's a tradition that we should get rid of, because women are just as capable as anybody else. And I'm sorry, Anarchy. I think Flushing had something to say.
Nah, I hear you. I love it.
Flushing, what was that?
Oh, no, I was just saying that. Sorry, I got kind of lost in the conversation over a little bit because I was listening for so long. But part of it is that I think challenging those norms is like also explaining to people, like when they say that kind of thing, like here is why that is maybe like the reason it's harmful, and like having that dialogue. And I know that's what we're doing. But my point was, it harkens back to women in the trades, actually, where it was like men are more willing to like get covered in shit or take shit jobs. But I think that women are just as willing to. It's just that it's framed as like nurses. So like nurses, they get constantly covered in body fluids and other stuff. It's a dirty job. It's disgusting. And women are willing to do that for around the same pay. You know, it's $60,000 a year. And so I think it's just how women have been framed to accept something like that. We accept it because we're caring for another person, whereas men will accept it because they're building something.
So the way that makes sense. So both women are willing to take jobs where, you know, they're going to get shit on, is just that they're socialized to accept it in different ways. Is
exactly,
that
yeah. It is that
okay,
and where does that socialization come from?
comes from
Oh,
the
it probably comes from
patriarchy.
the patriarchy. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like, so here's my thing, like I get like you and Moff, and I'd love to have a conversation with, you know, like I want him to be involved in that conversation, because this is not me being in I'm not even gonna like say I'm not being aggressive, but I'm saying like I watched how that entire exchange happened, and that is exactly how patriarchy works, right? Is that that's your partner, that's your friend, you know him, and you gave him a lot of leeway. Like, if I don't know him, I know him, and this is basically, you know what I'm saying? And I understand that, because we all have that we all sort of like live in that sort of like double consciousness, right? But I am saying, though, if we're having conversations about sort of like addressing these 9 issues that are on this thing, then there is a requirement, in the same breath that he would say, I would never hire a woman, you know, and say it with with no disrespect. First of all, as soon as he said that, all disrespect. That was disrespectful to me. That was disrespectful in general to me. But like, if we're having this conversation about like how we are addressing these societal issues, these social issues, these systemic issues, you can't not hold the people that are in community with you to these same things, right? You can't sit there and say, hey, yeah, I don't know, Kat, so let me sort of like lighten the load or lighten and make it that's, for me, that sort of like, that then makes me think, then what are we actually talking about? Because I really, it's not of interest to me to have arguments with like white supremacists or overt misogynists. I'm more interested in having conversations with people that really are not conscious of how misogyny works, or how the patriarchy works, or how white supremacy works. Because if they aren't conscious of that, and we sort of unpack those and roll those out in a way that throughout, even in our friend groups, in our social settings, and understand what that looks like, we point them out and we say, hey friend, wait a minute, what does that mean? Let's push back a little bit on that. We push back on it in a way that we can have these conversations, as opposed to having, especially when you have women on a panel and they come up and say like, I would hire a woman. That's really weird, because if it was a conversation around race, and it was a white dude, and he came up here and was like, I want to hire a Negro, and that's your friend, that's something that we would easily like, wait a minute. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's what you're saying.
And I'm not trying to like because I don't know Mouth, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to push on him, because I don't know him. But that's how it read to me.
Yeah, I
personally.
see. Yeah. I see what you're saying. And Troy, go ahead before I go ahead and end the knife.
Just the only thing about women in the trades. I'm in the trades. I'm in a union, IBW. It's in the South, so like it's easier to get into. So we do have women in the trades now with me electrician, and like the work isn't as hard as people think. Like there is a lot of like heavy work that requires big machines. Well, like they're not expected to use it. We don't really need them to use it either, because plenty of burly guys who can do it. A lot of other work it's not as hard as people think. Like especially if you're doing like residential, like you can hire women to do residential work. What are you doing? Like just they're putting up a light, a screen light. That's easy stuff. And on top of that, the tools are so much lighter now. They pack a lot of power, but it's still easier to control. Like if you go to Home Depot right now, you pick up like one of the 12-volt tools, right? It usually you say 12V. Like pick those up, it's the notion that women, they can't do the work. Like no, they can do the work. If it's like heavier, 9 times out of 10 they got a man with them anyway, because no one is dangerous for women to do work like that by themselves. Because unfortunately we live in a dangerous place for women to be in. So usually they always have a man with them anyway. And 9 times out of 10 that man's going to handle the very rare moments where they need a little extra, manpower, and so like, just a PSA, don't be afraid to hire women. 9 times out of 10, like, as a matter of fact, a lot of women Because the women, they feel as if they have to prove themselves. So actually,
they're gonna work
a lot
on
of times they do more work.
Can I ask you a question? Because how y'all define danger? It almost it seems like y'all don't understand.
No, I mean danger as in like women being SA.
Yeah,
and stuff like
the way that
like,
you described danger was heavy. It could hurt. It could hurt her. And I can change a tire. Here's what I would say. Here's what I would say. Here's an example that I was. Here's an example that I would use. Right. So one of the things that happens within the Black community is medical racism. You have heard of that term, correct?
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry, Anarchy. Can you just give me 1 second? Cause I do got to get off this live in a few. And
my bad.
No, it's all good. Moff did said he wanted to clarify, and I want to clarify one more thing as well. I think the way that I kind of push back is I try to reframe how the person thinks and introduce to them like information that they may not have had before. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I do it. It does seem like more conversational and giving people leeway. Like I do get that. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that criticism and kind of reform how I do it, if that makes sense, Anarchy.
And for sure, and I've never been on your live before. I appreciate the background. I appreciate almost, not want to say almost all of the space. So I'm only pushing back just in the general space. I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No weight.
Not a problem. All right, Marv, go ahead and clarify what I wanted to say because I got to get out of here.
I'll make it quick. But first, I do want to say I don't think you deserve that criticism at all, bro. Personally, I really do think that throughout all the conversations that we had, you already know I've told you this verbally. You changed my views many times in many ways. And you still do that today. That's why I watch your content, even though I don't agree with everything you say, because I know you're somebody that take the fair ground, and you've always been that way. That's what I like about you.
I'm sorry, y'all. My fiance being silly in the back over here.
Hey, I appreciate. Hey,
how do you feel?
Sorry, we just fell over. I apologize. My bad.
But to you, Anarchy. So I would say I did hire a female, but she was my secretary.
I mean, it's the fact that you're saying female is already.
Listen, you spoke this whole time. I didn't say a single word. I expect the same respect. Please. Okay. So I did hire a woman, female, whatever, girl, whatever word you want to use. I don't.
Woman is fine.
Okay,
that's fine.
Well, I did hire her, but she was my secretary. When it comes to the labor part of it, I do prefer to have a man for the reasons that the trio stated. Yes, anybody can hand me tools. Like anybody can hand someone a tool. That's not hard. I mean, you can learn it. Yes, and some jobs are simple. If I have you go replace a field valve or a flapper, I tell many of my female clients that you can do that yourself. You don't have to call me. You can just literally do it yourself, and I don't mind even telling you how to do it because some things are just simple that anybody can do, right? But like you said, you're talking about heavy lifting. We already know that. I mean, not on average, we already know that some men are stronger than lifting 300 pounds. I mean, yeah, we're probably going to ask for the male that's there and not the woman that's there. Just that's it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Don't disagree with what you're saying.
Let me finish, please. When I finish, I'll say I'm finished. I promise.
All right, I hear you.
Second thing, my girl just got a license to be an esthetician. She waxes for a living. That's what she do. And that's something that I've been thinking about. That
makes sense.
Say again?
That makes sense.
Okay, it's something I've been thinking about a lot. Actually, and I was actually thinking like, what if I wanted to do that? Like, what if I was to go there right now? Would they even let me do it? Because they asked my girl, like, are you comfortable waxing men? And obviously she had a choice to say yes or no. But her obviously answer was no. But I was thinking, like, what if a man was waxing? Would they ask him, are you okay with waxing women? I don't think they would even ask him that. You know what I mean? And I don't think
that's insane.
Hold on. I don't even think that a woman would be comfortable going to get a wax and you find out you got a male esthetician. So I feel like y'all are biased, right? Like you're gonna say that when it comes to the trades, but if it came to you getting your thing waxed, you're gonna have a whole different view on that, right or wrong.
So let me give you. Let me ask you.
Right or wrong, ma'am? Asking a question.
No, I disagree with you.
Okay, let me hear why.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you an example.
Don't use OB-GYN because that's not the same. I know you probably gonna go there, but don't go there.
No, I'm not gonna go there. I don't want you to make an assumption about me because actually I don't know anything about waxing or estheticians. That's so far away from my
I'm gonna
space.
get off in a bit.
But I am gonna ask you. real quick. I am going to ask real quick.
You're using a logical.
Hold up. Hold up. I want to ask real quick. What gender was the person that helped black people come up from slavery?
Right? You mean the woman?
Yes, the black woman.
But come on.
No. Because if we're talking about when you start talking about labor, when you start talking about stuff like that, I'm curious. Are you thinking about how black women or women specifically? But I'm a black person, so I think in terms of black women. But are you thinking about that? And I feel like you're not. I feel like if your example is that your partner is an esthetician and that they don't want to like shave balls. I don't want to shave balls, but that doesn't have anything to do with my
It's not about you shaving balls. It's about
it's
if there was a
dudes
male.
that don't want to
No.
shave. It's dudes that don't want to shave balls, my guy.
No. That's
So
not. No, ma'am. That's not what I said.
I'm saying to you is when you use something around about labor, right? Tell me, give me the metrics of the labor that it took for a black woman to go from being enslaved several times from the north to the south and what that looked like. And that's talking about what you guys consider, like when I say you guys, I'm talking about like the patriarchy, about handling weaponry, going through like understanding what the land is, right? How to maintain a cadre of people, right? Those are and also too, by the way, she was also a spy for the United States Army, right? So when we talk about those things, I don't think that you are thinking consciously around what women's capabilities are. I think that you are only thinking about your manness, your maleness, and what men can do or what men should do. And that's totally fine. That's your tradition and that's okay. But I don't think that has anything to do with women, right? I don't think that you should be putting that on women. If you have decided in yourself that as a dude, this is what dudes should do, fair enough. Like the fact that you are able to, when you talk about women, instead of saying women, you say females, that's a sign for me, but fair enough. But when you talk about what men should do, I support what you think that traditional level is. I don't think that then you should have I don't think that it's okay. I'm going to push back on what you think that women should do. I think that if you say, and here's my thing, of course, you can hire whoever the hell you want to hire, but if you come on a panel and talk about that and say, with no disrespect, I'm not going to hire a woman, then I'm going to take that, first of all, disrespectfully, and I'm going to push back on that. And less pushing back on that about you, because I think that you said clearly what you think. I'm pushing more back on the host because of basically what the whole entire premise of the panel is. And so we can disagree. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
I don't think I ever say what women. I don't think I ever say what women should do. By the way, I think even from the very beginning.
I think that you.
Wait, ma'am.
Whether you said it. Okay, fair enough.
You have a big problem with cutting people off, honestly, and I don't.
I apologize.
I don't like that. It's not respectful in conversations. But anyway,
I'm not a respectful person. That's fair. I'm not a respectful person. The host do gotta go, but I'm not a respectful person.
All right, yeah. I do gotta wrap it up. Everybody pause. But no, it's all good. Go ahead and say what you're gonna say last, Moff, and then I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I do appreciate you being here, though. Go ahead, Moff.
All I want to say is I don't think I ever say what women should do. All I did was state my views on what I want to do with my company. That's it.
Right. That's not what you did, but that's fair.
That's exactly what I did when the first I don't know if she's a sister or whatever, but when the first lady said, if I want to mow my grass and all this stuff, do it. I even said, hey, wait, hold on. You guys can do any of that. Again, I even tell my women clients, hey, if something easy I feel like you can
I'm
do.
glad you're saying woman now, not female.
I use female. I do it out of respect for you because I respect.
No, that's not respectful. It's not interchangeable.
I do it out of respect. Listen,
it's ridiculously disrespectful.
Listen, whether I say female, woman, girl,
it's disrespectful.
Can I clear something?
Let's get back to the main point.
Gotcha.
I apologize, but that is disrespectful. I'm sorry.
I'm saying woman out of respect for you because I know if I say female, you're gonna have a problem with it. I think that's fair.
Yes, I would.
Thank you. Okay, you're welcome. All right. Bossy, I can't even make my point. This girl's obnoxious, bro. I don't even understand. But thank you for. I
I don't think
appreciate the
I'm being
floor.
obnoxious. I think I'm just holding you to
You're cutting me off
a
every time.
standard in
Every time I
how
speak, you're literally cutting me off. Every time.
Everybody pause. Everybody pause. Okay, Moff, go ahead and say the last things you were gonna say, and Anarchy, I promise I'll let you go. Okay, go ahead, Moff.
Okay.
Well, it's a control. Go ahead, Moff.
What was I saying anyway?
You're saying that you're gonna do this for your own personal business, but everybody else can do what they like.
Yeah. Look. At the end of the day, people's gonna do what they want to do, right? I have my own household. I have my own rules in my own household, and I would find a woman that agrees to the way I view life, right? That's what anybody would do. And I just think that the values that I hold, it's good for me and my household. It's good for my business. Something I do want to say, I've been in business for 5 years, and I've never had a woman apply for a labor position, by the way. I will say that, too. And many other plumbing companies I worked for, same experience, and they were way bigger companies. Never had a woman even so much as apply for a labor position. So I don't need a poll to see. I know my trade, and I know reality, and I speak to a lot of tradesmen throughout the world, not just in Texas, And I think that my main point was, if women wants to get in trades, do it. No one's stopping y'all. It's wide open just like it is for men. But for some reason, they don't do it. Whether that's social norms, whether that's patriarchy, whatever the reason is, they don't do it. And I'm not going to go out here and stick out my thumb to advocate for women. What I do advocate for is black men. And that's been my vision since I started this company. Vossi, you know that personally. I've only ever hired black men. That's all I ever want to do. I don't like when people compare race with gender. It's not fair to me. It's almost dumb. Like, just keep it on gender. You don't have to bring up race. I'm a proud black man. I'm pro-black. Yes, I'm conservative. I'm not a leftist, but all my values are true, and I stand on them. I don't disrespect women. I don't hate women. I have a black mom. I understand black culture. Everything you said, ma'am, I agree with you. I see what women do in this society. I appreciate what my girl do. You know what I mean? I appreciate all of the roles in society, but I can't make these changes. If I could, I would. If I can get females in trades right now, I would. But again, I'm not about to force them to get into them. So what I'd rather them have, like I said from the very beginning, is free college. Because at least they can go be nurses. At least they can go be teachers. At least they can go be doctors. They can go get into all these other fields that will be profitable for them. That was my whole point about it. And they don't have to worry about trades. But for men, I think that we shouldn't get free college because we have the opportunity to go and get in trade. We do apply for these things, and it's something that can make us between 80 and 100 grand and within 4 years of working in trades. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. No. Okay. So I got you now. Just for a little pushback. Like I understand, like in your household, like these are the rules, your traditions, and you don't want to do it for any other. You don't think you don't want to force it onto anybody else. Cool. I got that. Now, for your personal business, I can't tell you what to do with your business, right? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I do think that the reason why you don't see a lot of women or little to no women or no one at all in your business, because just like what I said, I think it's socialization. I don't think it's because they can't do it. Some of them might even be interested. Who knows? There could be a cheerleader out there that want to know how to change a toilet. You never know. You feel what I'm saying? I think it's just the socialization aspect of it, and not necessarily them not being able to do it. Now, again, I can't tell you what you do with your business, Moff, but I always support the fact that you want to hire black men and get us out there, get us into the trades. I think that is a good thing. But as far as free college go, I wouldn't restrict it only to women. Yeah, I mean, because men do are more into the trades than women are. But I think that just only because of socialization, not because of anything inherent. And I hope that makes sense. Text me though, because I know you had to run. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here, and I need to go ahead and his phone. He's on to his phone died. But anyway, I do have to get out of here. I do appreciate you, Trill, for bringing up the fact that women do residential work. A lot of them do the housework, and that's basically as difficult as trades can be. Trust me, I clean me and my wife clean our apartment every weekend, and it's it's backbreaking. Anarchy. I'm not sure the last
same deal. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What was that true?
In commercial as well. I'm just saying, like,
in commercial,
if you're about hiring a woman to do residential work, I'm like, that's like way easier than commercial, and they're doing commercial work too. So like, you definitely don't have no issue with residential.
I want you to be with your fiance or your wife, but that's crazy. That's crazy. I want y'all to have that conversation, maybe off app, but that's insane. And either because that goes literally against what you're putting up on this prompt, and I don't know you like that. This is my first time engaging, and I appreciate it, but like, nah.
Yeah, I do run into a lot of like conservative minded people, and trust me, I always try to pull them.
You put energy behind saying like, I know him, and you already know me, and of course he left because he didn't want to engage in it. And of course you gotta go. I understand that part. Like, yeah, all right. I'm just saying. That's my thoughts.
No, I got you. I definitely understand. Unpacking patriarchal ideas are not easy. Trust me, me and him have gone back and forth on this sometimes for hours. Unpacking those ideas are extremely hard to do. The reason why, like, I befriended him and started becoming that because I see he has some sense. Now, there are some people who are like, these bees and these females, like someone like Marvin Gaines is never going to be my friend. You know what I mean? Someone like Marvin Gaines is never going to be my friend. But
if a person says to me, as a black person that owns a business, right, and says, I don't want to have a conversation, like, don't bring race into that conversation, right? I would think, for me, how I would engage in that conversation with a friend of mine is you can't, it is all...
You can't separate it.
Yeah, you can't. And I'm not trying to be... I didn't like anything that he said. I was offended by a great deal of what he said, but I'm not gonna be like an asshole to him because I love black people. So I want space for all of us to sort of like walk through that space and figure out what that looks like. But what I am saying is, though, this sort of like softness that comes with when it comes to the intersectionality of like patriarchy and racism, the fact that he said specifically, I don't want to have a conversation like you're bringing race into it, and you know me, brother, that I love. I'm going to hire black men. I get that. He can hire black men all day, and he can specifically only hire black men. I don't think that he has to only hire black men and then also in the same breath, right, or not have any pushback about that, or pushback about how he talks about women, right? I think that that's a fair space, unless he's never around black women, or never around women. He's married to a woman, and for me, my thing is, and it's less about him because I don't know him and I don't know you, but I'm going off of like your topic prompt. Yeah, that's the kind of shit that needs to be pushed back on. When we're talking about intersectionality, when we're talking about misogyny and that stuff, yeah, there's some stuff where somebody is wrong or harmful. If I say like, don't call me female, right? Refer to me or the people in your life, or not even the people in your life, but the people that you are engaging with that are women. Don't refer to them as female. That's not me being aggressively harmful and saying like I'm being a dick. That's me saying like, hey, wait a minute, this is a term that is harmful, right?
Yeah, I got that.
All right on.
Yeah, no, right. I got that. I understand that. Like, even
there,
saying
because sometimes I feel like when it comes to black dudes, black men specifically, when we can talk about racism, we can talk about white supremacy, we can talk about the hierarchy of those spaces, but somehow when it starts to talk about like misogynoir, that concept seems to get lost.
Yeah, this is what I've said a lot, right? Because I've spoken like for years, spoken to like white conservatives. Like one thing that I realize is that, excuse me, a lot of white conservative people are not actually hateful racist. They're just racially ignorant. Yeah, I mean, they just don't know. Yeah, I mean, so introducing them to those topics are difficult conversations. One thing that I realize as well is that because we live in the type of society that we live in, a lot of men, or I say most men, or basically all of us, are misogynistic, and we don't know. You see what I'm saying? So we have to introduce those type of things in a way that they will understand. You see what I'm saying? Now, I understand how that's kind of more of a soft pushback for more people.
It is soft.
Yeah, I get that. That's a soft pushback, but honestly, I've seen it work. Where if I'm introducing them more information without completely like negating their worldview, they're more likely to turn around. You see what I'm saying?
I don't mind that. I don't mind that, but I do think that it is important that. Here's the thing: if I was having a conversation with white folks about white racism or about racism or white supremacy, and it happened to be some black people on the panel. We're using this app as an example. I am not going to be in a space as I'm trying to sort of engage in that conversation and allow harmful things that's going to harm the people that we're talking about. Right? So I'm not going to sit there and be like, it's okay for you to say female. He literally used female, woman, girl, within the same. Yes, that's not okay. Now, some would find that to be okay. In the same space, if we're talking about race, some would find it to be okay if we say y'all, or if we say what I'm asking for. If these are the things, the prompt that you're holding up, and again, I said I love this. I followed you. I'm in this space. I want to hear more. But I'm saying then, if that was happening in a racial concept, then I would ask for that to be because women are not children, right? Female is not. And with regards to the autonomy of someone being a woman, right? You push back on that. I'm not saying you. I am going to push back on that.
Yeah,
that's not me being an a-hole. That's not me being a typical feminist or that's. If we're having these conversations about dismantling these things, and you happen to have a person that you know that is a traditional person, fair enough, right? The onus is not necessarily on the people that are experiencing the harm. The onus is on him. The harm that he actually engaged in. The harm was that it's okay to call women females. And when I challenged him on that, he said, "Well, because I don't want to make it be a thing." That dismisses women's autonomy. That's not me saying I'm just being, hey, F you for calling me a female. That's literally dismissing. And he walked into that conversation saying, I would never hire a female. My wife is that's stuff. I'm not even challenging what he do and how they do it, but that is a space to even challenge, especially your friend. Hey, let's have a conversation about this. Not that the onus ends up being on women collectively, that they end up being reduced to being females. That's harmful. That would be like if somebody say, y'all know what y'all niggas do. And the fact that he used, and he said I want to separate the fact that it's like you can't connect race and gender. And then he said specifically, oh yeah, I am conservative, and so it's not. Of course, we all saw that. You can't then say, listen. First of all, I don't have a problem with be whoever the hell you are. But then, if you're going to get on a panel, stand in that space, and then be okay with someone challenge you, especially in a space where you're saying that women or females can't hold labor.
Right. So yeah, I 100% understand and agree all there. Right. The only position that I'm coming from is speaking to people in a language that they would understand, and understanding that a lot of people don't have the tools or the language or even know when something is wrong or harmful or not. And me, the way that I speak to them, even like people who are, you could ask people who's been here before. I've had people who are racists on here who really don't get it, really don't understand. I had one a few minutes ago, and I actually do speak with them. You know what I mean? And I see that once I give them the knowledge or the tools or different perspectives, you can have that change, right? I think that comes from me like wanting to be a therapist. So that's why I kind of like talk to them in that matter. But I'm not gonna discount the fact that it's harmful to interchangeably use girls, women, females, et cetera, et cetera. Now I'm from Florida, right? So down here, that was a thing that we did. We said females, we say your homegirls. Yeah, exactly. So all right, so you already know. We said females all the time. We used to say females all the time. So like I get it. I get. Hold on, I get that it's not okay, but people don't have that language yet. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of this takes time. You feel what I'm saying? So that's why I'm a little bit more patient with them.
The pushback should fair enough, because my favorite word is grace. Right? I have all the grace for black people. I have zero grace for white folks. None. And so I understand.
Yeah, same. I ain't gonna lie. Same.
But if we have that conversation, then the first of all, black women at the bottom of this hierarchy, and so it should be a space where we're like, wait a minute, we don't engage with when we're talking about black women and referring to them as female. No, we don't. I think that I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. I get that, because I think that it's all a learning space, but I feel like because that's your man's, right? And I think that also too, oftentimes patriarchy has a heavier weight in the conversation. The gender conversation has a heavier weight than even sometimes the racial rate.
Yeah, I'm 100% way more patient with my friends than I am with strangers. Like I'm not even gonna lie to you, I'm way more patient with them. Yeah, if anyone else had that wasn't, if anyone else that wasn't my homie, if anyone else who wasn't my homie had said that, I would have asked them, what do you mean by that? I would have gone into the whole dialectic. Because it's my homie, like I had to.
Alive, but certainly like that makes me feel uncomfortable, because if somebody says like, well, can we actually have a conversation that is us actually trying to unpack this stuff?
Yeah, I got you. I think it's because like I've spoken to Mal for such a long time that I know that he has the ability to unpack.
He's there. I get it.
He's there. So he has the ability to unpack it.
I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I ain't trying to be a dick about it, and I don't want to try to come from your space. So I understand. I apologize.
All good. I do got to go ahead and run and get out of here because my wife is right here.
That's on me. I
telling me that I need to get off. Baby, get on camera. Get on camera. you have clothes. You got your booty shorts on. Yeah, all right, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here.
Have a wonderful night. It was a pleasure.
No, it's all good because like when I like to learn new stuff, I get pushback. You know what I mean? For me to get better. It is what it is.
You gotta follow up for me, so I see you next time.
Yeah, I got you. I appreciate you. All right, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Marv, you know I didn't mean anything by that, bro. You know I didn't mean anything about that. When I say the ability, you know what I'm talking about, bro. Come on, man. But I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here, y'all. I appreciate y'all, everybody being here. This was a long one. And yeah, I'm not gonna get no coochie tonight because of y'all. So I do appreciate y'all, and I do love y'all. Remember y'all to be kind to everybody. It's tough times ahead, y'all. It's tough times ahead. We're only 7 months into this presidency, and so it's tough times ahead. And we got to be kind to each other. We got to strategize, organize. Be with each other and love each other as much as you can. And strategize, y'all. Strategize and organize. You ain't got to be out there, but strategize and organize, all right? We're all dust on